My mail ID. Okay. This is the mail ID. I think, Anurag, you had sent a mail and still I have not been able to find that mail. So any of your mail still not. Now a couple of you have, a few of you, a bunch of you have sent me a mail in the last couple of days, so I have not cleared all of those. But otherwise, if your mail is not reverted to till now, send a reminder. Okay. Answers you can submit at IS Live. Okay. Now, so hello, a very warm good evening to all of you, and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to another session of Indian Geography, where today we shall be continuing our discussion for the portion of agriculture that we left off yesterday. And we shall be building up on the concepts of agriculture, where we shall be taking an overview of the portions relevant for your examination. We are going to take an overview of the various different crop types, and majorly, we are going to stress upon what is green revolution, the limitations of the green revolution, the factors which made the green revolution a success. What do we understand by agroforestry? What do we understand by organic farming? But again, I would like to re-emphasize that this is not the portion where you will be, in a way, familiarized with the portion of MSP and the fair remunerative price, FRPs, etc. This is not the place for that. That is something, and agricultural policies reforms, you will study that in the portion of your economics. Okay. So at the end of the day, while you are consolidating entirety of your syllabus for revision purposes, there I would advise you that while you are preparing your consolidated notes after 2 or 3 revisions, make a complete consolidated note for agriculture, combining the portion that you have studied in geography and combine it with the portion that you have studied in economics as well. Okay. Now, here, uh, landslides in Himachal Pradesh, are they due to excess of construction? So that is one of the reasons. And also the cloudbursts, deforestation. So all the factors that we had listed for the why Himalayas experience greater amount of landslides, other than mining, all the other factors will be at place in the case of Himachal Pradesh. Okay. Yes, Gulam, that is more than sufficient. Right. So here, today, by the way, is the 23rd session, 23rd lecture for your geography. This is not the 24th lecture. Tomorrow, we will be having an extra session at 6:30 a.m. in the morning, where we shall try to finish the portion entirely. If, let's suppose, due to certain conditions or due to certain issues, let's suppose we are not able to cover the portion of mapping. So what we would do is, you will have 1 week of time to revise all the areas that we have already studied. So in that case, we will switch over the portion of mapping to the next Saturday, rather than having, I don't believe in having 5 to 6 hours of continuous class, or that too of a weekday batch. That is no longer justified, or that is no way justified on you. So your concentration obviously won't be dependent on and won't be concentrated for that long. So we'll try to finish it tomorrow, but if we are unable to finish it tomorrow, then we will have a separate concise mapping module for next Saturday. And the next Saturday, that is on 2nd, we are anyways going to have a separate doubt clearing session. So that is a separate doubt clearing session which we shall have, where we are not going to talk about anything new. We are not going to teach anything new. We are only going to cater to your doubts. So for that, any portion, any concept of geography that you have come across that you are not comfortable with, from the initial classes itself, any portion that you have now, ideally, I could have kept it tomorrow evening itself, but I have not kept it deliberately tomorrow evening because I understand that while attending the classes on a daily basis, many of us, we don't get time to consolidate. Many of us, we don't get time to revise. So obviously, we are not very much familiarized with the various different lacunae or the lack of concepts thereby that we face in certain areas. So that is why deliberately I give you 1 week of time. Go through the entire portion that we have studied, any area which concerns you. any area which gives you an anxiety, even to the extent whether to study that area or not, whether that particular portion is relevant for the examination or not, any kind of doubt, please send it to us at IES Live. Write the subject for the doubt clearing session and send your queries. And accordingly, at the end of on 2nd of September, we are going to have a separate doubt clearing session. Okay. So Nagendran, tomorrow the recordings will be available. If let's suppose tomorrow morning you are in the afternoon you can take a look at the recording as well. Okay. Pula, we wasted more time in the initial topics and rushed at the end. My dear friend, it was the initial topics where if the concept is not clear, the eventual topics will never be clear. And please understand, always get that concept very clear. We have to take everyone together. It might be possible, for example, yesterday you were not very comfortable with the portions of the soil, right? The different types of soil, crystallization or crystalline, igneous, and metamorphic rocks, if I'm not wrong. You were very uncomfortable in that. But the rest of the session was very comfortable in that. Right. So for the rest of the session, it was a good speed, but for you, it might have been a very faster speed. So please understand, in a session, it is always a kind of an accommodative balance that you take. And don't worry, at the end of it, what is it that matters for you? That the entire portion and the entire syllabus should be covered, isn't it? That is something which is important, or is there something else which is important? So we will finish everything. Don't worry about that. Okay. Doubt clearing session will be on 2nd. But I would ask everyone that is there any portion of geography that you have found it that we need to give a greater amount of attention into that particular area? Any portion of geography which is still giving you anxiety? Please let me know. Any portion. Climatology. Okay. Monsoon. So again, it comes down to climatology. Ocean currents and climatology. Okay. Physiography, see, if you are able to understand the portion of geomorphology in a basic manner, physiography is again where I would advise that kindly look at the recordings of the session. We have talked about the very basics, how they have been created, how the new landforms have been created. Okay, so then you shouldn't have a problem. Okay, remembering the parts of the map. So please don't remember the parts of the map. As long as you follow that approach, that you are learning the various different parts of the map, it will be very tough for you. Okay. But then any portion where you try to understand, where you try to basically explore the ideas, then it becomes automatically very easy. Wildfires. Wildfires and forest fires you study in the portion of disaster management, but wildfires are basically the random incidents of fire where you have due to natural causes such as thunder and lightning, where you have the fire lit up in the region of the grasslands, in the region of the scrublands and the forest. That is what the wildfires are. Okay. The entire agriculture portion is for GS paper 1 and GS paper 3. Every major economy is focusing upon Africa. Is it why UPSC is asking more questions from Africa? Yes, that is it. That is the reason why you will find UPSC is asking the questions which are derived from the portion of current affairs. And this trend has not started now. This trend has been initiated since 2015 itself. And that is the reason. Okay. Concept is nice as a revision on a daily aspect, that too twice, but I feel difficulty in questions of hard facts. such as monadnocks, zeugans. Zeugans, inselbergs, they are not going to be asked in your general studies. Zeugans, inselbergs that you are talking about, even monadnocks are the remnant portion, which is the leftover portion after everything is eroded and leveled. But zeugans and inselbergs, they are not, trichanters, etc., they are not going to be asked. Okay, right. Do we have to learn the different wildlife sanctuaries, ports, industrial areas? No. Only those relevant for the portion of current affairs. The problem in study, but the difficulties rise on motivation towards the continuous. That is the struggle of the civil services, where you go through ups and downs. The only thing that you can do is you ensure that during your down days you have enough productivity, and uh, during the down days at least you are able to go through the newspaper, and during your up days, that is when you have to hit the ball out of the park. That happens. Okay, any of the portion where you feel that in this session we have not been able to do perfect justice to any of the sessions, and be open and frank about it, any of this, so that I can provide you with some amount of solution that what can be done going ahead in the future. uh, Climatic classification. Okay. Yes, tablet videos, if you are taking a look into tablet videos, will form a very good medium of your revision. Today, at the end of the session, or tomorrow, we'll do this. Tomorrow, at the end of the session, I'll also try to give you a pathway of how to go for a revision. Climatology and oceanography, Vivek, see, in that, I would always suggest to you that initiate the portion from the module 6 that we have studied. Each and every slide of the PPT, take a look into it. Try to ensure that you have understood that slide. Okay, don't in the initial portion, don't think about tropical cyclone, jet streams, etc. Take a look at the first slide. Have you understood what is written in the annotation? And one by one, if you approach it, it will be a kind of a easy walk for you. Don't worry about that. Okay. And do arrangement of ridges and trenches are asked? Trenches are asked, yes, the arrangement of them. Is it necessary to watch tablet videos and live lectures necessarily? Tablet videos can serve as a point of revision. All those of you who are saying that the recordings of the live sessions are not available, so that will be an issue, etc. Tablet lectures are there for you. That will aid you. Okay. So overall, nobody has any amount of grievance when it comes to the time allocation for the topics, right? Get a new memory card, Gaurav. You have my lectures in the tablet, I hope, Gaurav. Tributaries, that also will come with multiple readings. See, tributaries, samples, and the types of forests. Then, when we talk about even the regions where minerals are to be found, the conditions for the various different crops, this is also very theoretical. So, the theoretical areas, they will require multiple reading. Volcanic eruption. When you talk about volcanic eruption, so there, in which portion you have a doubt, so there, please concentrate and try to find about that which portion is it that it is not clear. And always I would suggest that if your the portion of plate tectonic is better, volcanic eruption automatically gets better. Interlinking of rivers on map is not required. I have a doubt in movement of Indian plates and its collision with the Eurasian plate. Earlier, when all the landforms were associated together, how did Eurasian plate get dissociated? So, Divya, we have talked about what is referred to as a Wilson cycle, where every few hundred million years, the lands they move away, and then again, as they move away across the sphere, they will eventually come together. Then again, due to convection current, they dissociate. So that is what is Wilson cycle. So before Pangea, you at the time of Pangea, everything was together. They moved away because of convective current inside. Then again, going ahead into the future, again everything will come together. Obviously, hundreds of millions of years later. Now, before Pangea, you had Rhodesia. So that keeps on happening. Okay. And on map, uh, we want to mark to express our preparation. Geography will provide help in answer writing. Absolutely, yes. Monsoon portion. So do one thing. I see many of you have certain doubts about the basics of certain things such as fronts, monsoons, etc. Send a mail to us at IES Live. Write a subject of it that this is for the doubt clearing session, and send it to us in the on second of. And in fact, I would encourage that revise all the other portions meanwhile as well. You have 7 days time. Try to send it to us by latest around Wednesday or Thursday. Any kind of doubt that you have, any portion that you feel is weaker. For example, don't send me a doubt that tell me about volcanic eruption. What in volcanic eruption you have not understood? Try to concentrate upon that, and try to triangulate that differently, and we will address that. Okay. Human geography will do tomorrow. What is to be covered in human geography, Yukti? Are you aware of that? It is about population settlement, my dear friend, about the factor of population and the factors on which the population density varies from one region to another. What are the factors based upon or the problems faced by the urban settlements? So those are the kinds of topics in human geography. Okay. Garvit, as of now, try to study from the NCRT itself. Okay. No, the next class or the next subject will be starting from Monday itself. The next class will be starting from Monday, and the on Saturday, next Saturday, we are going to have that doubt clearing session. Okay, Anurag, I'll take a look into it. Shrikant, what is your question, my dear friend? Then we proceed. I'm unable to take a look at your question out there. Tomorrow it's from 6:30. Tomorrow session will be from 6:30. Okay, various streams are confusing you. So with the help of the image, try to find it out. Try to draw the image with your own hand, and many of the times when you draw the figure on your own, the concepts become clear. Okay. So one more thing, I joined the class in the middle. When will you conduct geography classes again? So kindly contact IS Live so that you get the detailed schedule. I think the next classes slated are on weekends. So weekends I will be taking. And after that, depending upon the availability, we'll let you know. Okay. Now we continue with the portion of the types of agriculture. Now, when we talk about the types of agriculture, yesterday also we had talked about it, that you have various different portions in the agriculture in terms of, and again, before proceeding, let me focus and draw this portion again, because many of you might have this kind of a hesitation that whether to concentrate on physical geography or Indian geography. Always understand, the confidence in geography will come if you have a good grasp over physical geography. Indian geography, you will be able to cover with the portion of current affairs with your daily experiences as well. It is the portion of physical geography, guys, that is where majority of the competition loses out, because that is where UPSC has got a kind of a twist in the tail, where UPSC can twist the sentences, put the concepts, and frame the option in such a way that it might appear outwardly to you. So please, when you are carrying out your revision, pay significant stress to physical geography. That is what we have tried to endeavor in the portion of the study of this entire module as well. So there also I would suggest, out of all the three, that is the geomorphology, climatology, and oceanography, climatology is the most important and conceptual one out of them all. So there the revision should be started from the basics of atmosphere. The basics of heating. If the sixth and seventh module, you ensure that sixth and seventh module is clear slide by slide, then rest of the portion of climatology will automatically fall into your place. Please understand, even though you might not realize it, that but when I take a look at majority of the doubts that you send me, majority of you have the basic doubt with regards to the heating of land and water, the occurrence of high pressure and low pressure, why the winds will blow from high to low pressure. So these are the basic doubts that many of you encounter. So pay stress on that. Get this clear. The portion of Indian geography automatically follows. This is not a portion where a question will come where you have no clue about how to write the answer. You might not be able to write the best answer out of the Indian geography, but you will be able to frame an answer. It is in the case of physical geography where the type of questions, when they are asked, where the concepts are twisted, that is where you will be left out of place. So please do focus upon that. Okay. Now, here we start with the portion of the types of agriculture where we had talked about yesterday as well. When we talked about the subsistence type of agriculture, it is the agriculture. Okay, Shrikant, you also have the same query. So, Shrikant, with all humility, let me tell you, kindly take a look at the NCRTs, the PPTs, the ARMs. Trust me, they are more than sufficient. Okay. So, as of now, when we try to resolve this issue, till that point of time, kindly take a look at the PPTs, the ARMs, as well as the NCRTs. NCRTs are the basic textbooks based upon which the questions are framed. It happens that certain areas NCRT has not paid much attention to, or in certain areas NCRT has committed the error. That is where you have these live lectures, live sessions, the class sessions. So annotations of the PPT will be available to you, my dear friend. The ARMs will be available to you. Plus, for other reference, you have the tablet videos, tablet lectures available to you as well. Plus, even after studying all of that, any portion, if it worries you at any point of time, I'm not saying only till your subscription lasts or till we have a kind of a transactional relationship out there. No, let me tell you here, I'm still in touch with the candidates whose subscription ended around 1.5 years back and who are giving their attempts, right? So it is not a kind of a transactional relationship that we have. I hope you don't see it that way, because when I interact with a student, when we interact with a student, and many of you would be a testament of that, because in many of your cases I have given you suggestions which you don't find in the case of the other faculties giving you that suggestion. So it is a kind of a trust building exercise that we have carried out. Now, the names that I went through in this, trust me, after every class we go through each and every comment that you guys have put through, so as to gauge how much everybody is understanding. So please don't have that kind of a misconception that after this class is over, then I will never get hold of this person again. That is why I hand out my mail ID very easily, and I will always be in touch with you. Even if, let's suppose, you choose an optional which is not associated with geography, still, if you have an issue, as long as I feel that I am capable enough to solve that, I will do it. If I'm not capable enough, I will ensure that there are capable people to help you out, because we are here to ensure that you clear this examination. Here, both of our goals, they converge. Okay. So if you clear the examination, that is something which will be the ultimate aim. So believe me, any type of queries that you face in any topics, even after the completion of the class, even after the completion of your subscription, you still have my mail ID. Get in touch. I will always be there for you. Okay. Don't worry about it at all. Okay. uh, okay. If the recorded videos, then how can I get it again? So you have the tablet videos, isn't it? So Shrikant, I hope that assuages some amount of your anxiety. And don't worry about whether this material is available or not. At any point of time, if any material is, take a look at NCRTs which are available for free online. The crux of it is you have to clear the exam. How do you clear the exam? There are hindrances, and I agree to you, I sympathize and empathize with you that there are hindrances. How to overcome them? So that is where I'm there to help. Okay. Now, we talk about the subsistence farming. And subsistence farming here, we talk about agricultural production, agricultural production for self-consumption. Okay, for self-consumption. And primitive means you are not technologically driven. You are not driven by technology. You are not driven by the various modern inputs. You are dependent on traditional mechanism. For example, fertility of the soil. You will not augment it with any additional input. You will basically be dependent upon whether rainfall will be there to provide you with enough water, whether the soil will have enough nutrients themselves or not. Then intensive subsistence. So here again, you are dependent on significantly the fertility of the soil. By the way, this primitive subsistence form of farming, this is mostly to be carried out in the hilly areas, hilly terrains, which are not very well connected in terms of infrastructural facility, which have a kind of a basic isolation of sorts in terms of commute, right? Where you don't have many infrastructural facilities which are available there. It is in those areas that you will experience this. So here, this is observed in hilly tracts and terrain. Okay, shifting cultivation is a type of this. Then intensive, mostly carried out in the alluvial plains, mostly in alluvial plains. Yes, Mayank, that is a correct conclusion to make. Okay, now for example, in India, if you consider the region of West Bengal, Bihar, even Assam plains, UP, Punjab, Haryana. So in these areas, even in eastern coastal plain, where the production is completely based upon the fertility of the soil, and you will have everybody in the family involved directly or indirectly in the process of cultivation. That is your the intensive subsistence. Then you have commercial. Commercial is purely for profit, purely for profit purposes. Okay, let's take a look at the types of them. So primitive subsistence farming, it is practiced in small pieces of land using rudimentary tools and techniques, very basic tools and techniques. Food produced is chiefly for self-consumption. Mostly you will find that the modus operandi used is that of a shifting kind of agriculture. What do we mean by shifting kind of agriculture? So for example, here, Yashi will come to it again, don't worry. So when we talk about shifting kind of agriculture, what is it? Suppose here you have a tract of land, right? And here you will find that there are various different trees in existence. Shifting cultivation basically means where you shift the area where you are producing food. You shift the farmland itself. Now, if you want to carry out cultivation here, what people do is they will clear these trees. They will clear this trees. Okay, so they would have slashed all the trees and then they would have burnt the residue. So the ground is now available for cultivation. Now, this ground will be able to provide fertility of soil for maybe 2, 3 seasons or 4 seasons for growing of crops, because you are not putting in any kind of additional input there. You are not putting in any artificial or any kind of artificial chemical input to augment the soil fertility. Even in organic farming, many of the times you put in certain inputs to augment the fertility. Here, you are not doing any of those. You are not carrying out crop rotation. So you are dependent on the fertility of the soil to persist. So once the fertility is not persistent anymore, what the people do is they will switch their area of cultivation to somewhere else. Okay, they will come to a newer area where they can carry out the process of cultivation. So that is the shifting kind of cultivation. Now, one method of this shifting kind of cultivation is the slash and burn. So slash and burn. So slash and burn, in this what you do is, for example, let's suppose you have a tree. Now, when you cut that tree, basically, right, you burn off the remnant. So then you have the land which is available for you for cultivation. Now, obviously, in this method of cultivation or agriculture, you will never have enough output to be able to give you profit. You will never have enough output to give you enough amount of income at the end of the day as well. So what do you rely upon? So people who carry out this shifting kind of cultivation, you will observe that they also carry out hunting, gathering, beekeeping, and other such exercises in order to ensure the availability of enough income. Right. So that is your shifting cultivation. It is also referred to as June cultivation in certain parts. Then it is also referred to as slash and burn agriculture. And it is migratory in the sense that the farmland, modus operandi refers to method of operation. That is the meaning of modus operandi. So here, farmland under cultivation shifts. Right. In the sense, it is not as if the land in itself starts shifting. You shift your cultivation to some other area. Land is cleared with traditional tools and cultivated for a few years. As the fertility declines, land is abandoned in favor of another freshly cleared land patch. Here, generally, you will find cereals and tubers, root crops which are grown. For example, in Africa, you will find the growth of crops such as cassava. For example, many other tubers you will find to be grown like that. Yam is again one of those. So that is where you will find that shifting kind of cultivation focuses upon. Now, hunting, gathering, fishing, and bird rearing, these are also carried out in these areas in order to augment the level of income that people have. So, to be observed in Latin America, tropical Africa, tropical regions of South and Southeast Asia, in those areas also you will observe shifting kind of cultivation. Okay, this is also here shifting cultivation is carried out. Then intensive subsistence. So it is carried out in river valleys and delta plains in South and Southeast Asia primarily. Here, the main asset is the fertility of the land because these are alluvial deposits, and we have seen that alluvial soils are very fertile. So that is where you have a kind of a fertile soil in existence. So here you will find the presence of small farms due to high population density. So wherever you have a fertile land, population density automatically will be very high because more people will come into that area. More people will want to cultivate because it is a kind of an economic process of income earning. So more people will be attracted to come to that area. And wherever you have high population density, there will be stress on the farmland. So the size of the farmland reduces. So here you will mostly find small and marginal farmers. Mostly small and marginal farmers is what you encounter. Dominance of food crops, essentially rice. It is high intensity of land use. Each and every parcel of land is made use of. And here it is labor intensive. Generally, it is the family labor which is deployed. And members of the family, they carry out the process of labor work. Traditional methods like crop rotation, mixed cropping, etc. is carried out. Now, crop rotation is what? Crop rotation is, let's suppose you grow something like rice, which extracts fertility out of the soil. Now, after that, you grow, let's suppose, pulses. Okay, so you grow pulses here. So for example, pulses, they come into the category of legumes and leguminous plants. Leguminous plants, I'm sure you would have studied earlier. So these are the kinds of plants which carry out nitrogen fixation into the soil. They fix the atmospheric nitrogen into the soil, ensuring the fertility and retention of fertility of the soil. So when you grow pulses, the soil becomes fertile again. Again, after that, you can grow rice. So that is rotation of crop. You are in the same piece of land, you are rotating the types of crops that you are growing. Low level of commercialization is there. Why? Because of very small surplus, because most of it is the for self consumption, production for self consumption. Okay, then we have the commercial farming. Commercial farming is basically that kind of cultivation where you carry out the farming in large tracts of land. Generally, in large tracts of land, you will grow only one kind of a crop so that you are able to produce in large volumes, in large bulk. And that commercial farming is purely for profit purposes. Here, the motive is not for self consumption. So, here you will find the size of the farmland to be very large, and here all the modern methodologies of technology, they are also applied here. Okay, all the modern methodologies, so to say, they are also in application. So single crop is grown on a large land holding. This is also what is estate farming. For example, tea, coffee. Then you have plantation cultivation carried out for coconut, rubber. All of these are also carried out in plantation cultivation, right? So where you grow only one kind of crop in a very large tract of land, so that you are able to have a homogenized attention on that category of crops, and that will give you enough quantity to provide you substantial amount of income. It is highly commercial. It is capital intensive. In order to carry out this process of cultivation, you need high amount of capital investment, because the farmland, the land cost will be high. Technology in itself is also costly, it is not cheap. So capital intensive means initial investment is high. It is labor intensive as well. You require a significant amount of labor, and that too availability of cheap labor. Availability of cheap labor is required. Okay, is needed. Here you will find many of these large farmlands, they have processing infrastructure as well, where, for example, let's suppose after the usage of thrashers, harvesters, you get a kind of a plant which has got some residues, or the crop which has got some residues. So that purification process is carried out in the farm itself, so that it is transported directly to the market, so as to have a better realization. Here you will also find many of the much amount of value addition which is also done by processing of the crops. Many of the times value addition is also done. For example, the corn, the maize that you grow, now you have the corn which is extracted from that. Now that corn can be sold in the market just like that as well, but there you can extract the various different corn kernels, sell them separately. For that you require better machinery, and that corn kernels, when you sell it separately, that will give you a better price realization. So this is to improve the price attained. Then, tropical and equatorial regions across Asia, Africa, Latin America, these are the areas where you will find significant and substantial amount of commercial farming carried out. Then, in areas where the size of the land holding is much larger, in those areas, you carry out commercial livestock and grain farming at the same time. Livestock means that you take care of the animals as well. So you have a kind of a ranch where you keep multiple, let's suppose, cows, sheep, goats, etc., buffaloes, and then you still have enough piece of land to carry out the cultivation. So when you carry out the portion of rearing of animals or animal husbandry plus the portion of farming and crop cultivation simultaneously, that is what is also referred to as the mixed farming, where mixed farming is crop cultivation plus animal husbandry. That is what is referred to as mixed farming. Now, humid temperate areas such as northwestern Europe, eastern part of North America, parts of USSR, Australia, New Zealand, Tasmania, in all these areas, you have the process where the condition where the land areas are very large and simultaneous animal husbandry as well as the crop cultivation takes place. Equal emphasis is placed on both these activities. So here crops such as wheat, barley, oats, rye, fodder, and you have various different types of animals from where you also get an opportunity to earn some income by selling the animal products, and the animals themselves also you earn some amount of income. Here also you make maximum utilization of the land, in the sense that in certain areas you grow food crops, in certain other areas you can grow certain crops which are important or which can be used only by the animals themselves, right? So complete utilization of the land is taken up. High level of modernization and commercialization, high capital expenditure on agrochemicals, farm machinery, and processing infrastructure as well. Crop rotation and intercropping is also carried out. So, here also, animal husbandry means the aspect of rearing of animals. Rearing of animals. Okay. Why in humid areas comparatively? Because when we talk about the regions, so in drier areas or in tropical areas, such kind of very large land will require huge amount of water, right? So that is where it is generally not to be carried out. Not to say it is absolutely not to be found anywhere, it is generally not practiced, but in humid areas water availability is not a constraint. So that is why mostly you will find that in humid areas naturally also the lush green grasses they keep on growing so that the animals they have some amount of food to consume. Now then we come across to cropping pattern, and we come to the cropping pattern first. What do we mean when we talk about cropping pattern? So cropping pattern refers to the arrangement or the type in which you grow the crops. So for example, if I have, let's suppose, if I have a farmland. Now, in what arrangement do I grow crops here? That is the cropping pattern. Now, broadly, this is of two types. This is monocropping, monocropping, and you also have what is referred to as multi-cropping. Okay, monocropping and multi-cropping. Monocropping is when you grow this in one farmland one kind of crop, you don't grow it or you don't grow any other type of crop. So the same crop that you grow in the land, and for the rest of the year if the same crop cannot be grown, you leave the land fallow and barren. Multi-cropping is where you start to grow multiple crops in one year. So this is where multiple crops, multiple crops are grown through the year. Okay. So in the same piece of land, that also needs to be specified. In the same land. Right. So multi-cropping is also of different types. You have what is referred to as intercropping. What is referred to as mixed cropping. Mixed cropping is different from mixed farming, guys. Mixed farming is when you take care of the animals as well as you are able to grow the crops. That is mixed farming. Mixed cropping is something different where you grow multiple crops at the same time without any definite set pattern or arrangement. We'll talk about it. And then you also have what is referred to as sequence cropping. Okay. Now here, if you take a look at it, what do we mean by multi-cropping? That means in one farmland, you are growing multiple crops within the year. So it can be carried out in certain ways and manners. So you have intercropping, for example. Now in intercropping, what do you do? So in the case of intercropping, you will carry out the crops so multiple crops you will grow simultaneously in different rows and patterns. So for example, let's suppose here you grow in one row, you observe rice here, right? In another one, let's suppose you grow a vegetable, any of them. Then again, after that, you grow rice. Again, after that, let's suppose you grow vegetable. So here, you are growing different crops, but you are doing so in a definite row pattern. That is what is intercropping. Okay, when carried out in a definite row pattern. So this is definite row pattern. Row pattern. That is intercropping. Okay. Then you have what is referred to as mixed cropping. Now, mixed cropping is what? In the case of mixed cropping, for example, if you have the farmland, so in certain section, let's suppose I have grown here rice. Let's suppose here I have grown rice. In certain areas, here, let's suppose I have grown a vegetable. Then after that, let's suppose I have grown here some other thing, maybe tomato, maybe pulses, something like that, right? Then after that, let's suppose I have grown here cotton, if the land is large enough, right? I grow something else here. So overall, what do you see is that you have different crops which are grown simultaneously without any set pattern or arrangement as you observed earlier. So here you don't have a definite set pattern or arrangement. This is what is mixed cropping. Mixed cropping. Then what do we mean by sequence cropping? Sequence is where you grow a crop. After the harvest, you grow a particular crop, then again some other crop, then again you continue that. For example, in the piece of land, let's suppose you grow rice during the rainy season. After that, during the winter season, let's suppose you grow wheat. After that, when you harvest wheat, let's suppose you grow some melons, maybe let's suppose watermelon. Then again you grow rice. So you are growing it in a kind of a sequence within the year. You are growing multiple crops, but you are growing them in a sequence. That is what is referred to as sequence cropping. So intercropping, mixed cropping, and sequence cropping, they are a type of multi-cropping out there. So here, basically, if you take a look at the definition of it, so basically you have two types. One is monocropping, other is multi-cropping. Multi-cropping is subdivided into three particular types. Okay, so monocropping, it is monocropping or monoculture refers to growing of only one crop on a piece of land year after year, the same crop, right? It is the worst form of farming methodology which is carried out, because overall in the year you won't have that much amount of produce, and because obviously as the climate changes in various parts of the year, you don't have the conditions conducive for the same crop throughout the year. Then when you talk about multi-cropping, it is growing two or more crops on the same piece of land in one calendar year. That can be done by the method of either intercropping, mixed cropping, or it can be done in the form of sequence cropping. What are they? Intercropping is growing of two or more crops simultaneously on the same piece of land with a definite row pattern. So what you observe here in the first image, this is your intercropping. You are growing multiple crops, but then it is grown in a set row pattern. Mixed cropping, growing of two or more crops simultaneously without any row pattern, right? It is intermingled without any row pattern. This is your portion of mixed cropping that you would see in your screen, where you don't have a definite set row pattern, but you are growing multiple crops. Then you have sequence cropping. So can be defined as growing of two or more crops in a sequence on the same piece of land in a farming year. One after the other, you grow. So crop rotation that we have talked about, that is a kind of a sequence cropping in majority of the cases. Okay, now here when we talk about, yes, crop rotation is a kind of sequence cropping in itself. So now we come to the cropping seasons which are prevalent, which are to be observed in India. So what are the various different cropping seasons out there? So you have the Rabi season, the Kharif season, and the Zaid season. So when we talk about the Rabi season, so Rabi season or the Rabi crops, they are also referred to as the winter crops. Okay, they are also what are referred to as the winter crops. Kharif, they are also referred to as the monsoon crops because they are planted immediately after the monsoonal rainfall. And then you have the short growing time of the Zaid crops. Okay. So when we talk about the Rabi season, now Rabi season basically it extends it obviously during the winter months. So here the planting or the sowing, it is carried out in the month of October, November. Here, it is the Rabi crops, particularly in the northern part of the country, that is where they get help from the western disturbance, and the rainfall brought by the western disturbances, they help the Rabi crops out there. Then, basically, you have the growth of, and when is it harvested? So, this is harvested, okay, in the month of when? March, April. Example, you have mustard, wheat. Okay, these are the examples. So all those crops which require a lower temperature for growth, they come into the category of Rabi crops. Then you have Kharif crops. Kharif crops, they are generally planted or they require larger amount of moisture as compared to the Rabi crops. So where do they get the larger, or when do they get the larger amount of moisture? That is always attained after the condition of the rainfall. So after rainfall is received or attained in a region, that is when you have the Kharif season. So this is sown, the sowing is done. Yes, sometimes even in December also it is planted. It is not as if I write October to November, so from 1st October planting will start and 30th of November it is going to end. That is not how it happens. Generally, the sowing for the Rabi crop will many of the times be initiated in certain areas after the fourth week of October. In many of the areas, it carries out in the first week of December as well. So it is not something which is very stringently drawn on a piece of paper. The farmers basically they take a gauge about the weather conditions, the temperature conditions, and then they start sowing the seeds. Okay, so then sowing for kharif crop generally happens in the month of July, June and July itself, after the monsoon rains. Okay, and is harvested when is it that the kharif is harvested? September, October, in many of the cases even October. So here again, please don't get riled up that October you said Rabi sowing and October you are saying harvesting. So it varies from one place to another. It tends to vary. Example, you have rice, cotton, maize, even bajra, correctly pointed out, soybean, all of these are basically kharif crops. Then you have zaid crops. They have a very short growing season. Okay, they mature very quickly. So very short growing season. Short growing season. So here, sowing, when does it happen? It happens in the month of, very good, in the later part of April itself, April, May, and harvested when? Sugarcane will be kharif, harvested in the month of late May and June. Okay, later part of May and June. So the growing time or the growing period for these crops is roughly to the tune of around 45 days, 30 days in certain cases. So example, cucumber, muskmelon, watermelon, these are your examples of Zayed crops out there. Okay, so here you have the various important crops. So basically, you will observe that all of these barley, wheat, peas, mustard, all of these are your Rabi crops. Rabi crops. No, these are not Ravi crops. Ravi is a river. This is Rabi crop. Then you have the Kharif crops. These are your Kharif crops. Paddy, maize, jowar, cotton, tur, groundnut, soybean. These are your Kharif. And then watermelon, musk melon, cucumber. These are your Zayed. Yes, vegetables also. Many of the vegetables also come into the category. Okay, so that is basically the broader classification. Now all these crops you don't need to learn, you don't need to by heart all these. I'll tell you which are the important ones which we will study as well. Important crops for your examination that you should be absolutely mindful of is rice, wheat, tur. Okay, tur, are we aware what is tur? No, it is a kind of a pulse. Pulses comes into the category of pulses. Right, yes. What you call in India as arhar dal. That is what tur is. Okay. So rice, wheat, that is relevant. Then this year millets are important. For the next year also millets will be important. Then after that you will find the importance of crops such as cotton. Cotton is also sometimes asked. Then tea and coffee, maize. Okay, these are the crops which are going to be important for your even sugarcane for that matter. Question has been asked from the portion of sugarcane earlier as well. So sugarcane, these are the crops that I would want you to focus upon. And here, what do you have to focus upon? Not much, just the conditions required. If you are aware of the conditions required, I'm sure by this point of time, you will have a broader clue about the different climatic conditions experienced in different parts of the country. So you will be able to deduce where, in which part of the country will you observe the growth of these crops. Okay. Now, here, one by one, we'll take a look at each of them. We'll try to understand the conditions required for each of them, and then we will proceed further. So, starting with rice. So, when we talk about rice, it is a tropical crop. Rice is generally considered to be a tropical, moist, humid crop. It will be grown or observed to be grown only in those areas where the moisture level, the humidity level is significantly and substantially higher. So, to be grown in those areas where the moisture level is higher. So, generally, they grow in regions of high temperature with annual rainfall. Ideally, the ideal rainfall requirement required is basically 120 centimeter per year. 120 to 130 centimeter per year rainfall, if it is received, that is the ideal condition. But then here, in majority of the parts, that amount of water is not available. Minimum what you require is 100 centimeter per year. Majority of the parts, that amount of water is not available by rainfall. So that is why, with the artificial methodologies of irrigation, such as pump wells or tube wells, such as the canal networks, etc., we provide that artificial supply of water to ensure the growth of these crops. So development of irrigation in regions of less rainfall makes it prevalent in those areas as well. In regions such as Assam, West Bengal, Odisha, Tamil Nadu, in certain parts of Tamil Nadu coastline as well, the conditions are conducive throughout the year. Right? In terms of the regions such as Punjab, Haryana, UP, etc., the winter suddenly will start becoming colder. So they won't be able to support rice anymore during the winter season. So that is why it is a kharif crop. But in areas across the coastline, which is closer to the sea and where you have the coastal plains as well, so there the availability of temperature is also there, availability of moisture is also there. So there you will find multiple varieties of rice being grown in the same year. For example, Os, Aman, Boro, these are the types of rice. One is planted in the month of June, harvested in the month of August. Another is planted in the month of late July, harvested in late September, early October. Then you have one of them planted in the month of December, harvested in the month of February. So that is where it is grown multiple times in the same year. So in states like Assam, West Bengal, and Odisha, three crops of paddy are grown in a year. These are the various different varieties. Okay, varieties of rice. Now here you will observe that the major rice growing areas, they are basically restricted to the regions which have high rainfall. These are your major rice growing areas, okay, where the average availability of moisture is higher and temperature is also in general higher. Now, one other, and these are your minor rice growing areas where it is not the major crop, but because of availability of irrigation and because of other factors, they are growing it there. Look at the predicament in the region of Punjab, Haryana, Western UP. right? Even in northern part of Rajasthan, what kind of forest naturally will be observed there? Let me see if we have revised. What kind of forest is observed in those areas? Yes, good. Manas, Puja, Tarun, other Tarun as well, Chandranath, Basu. Good. Here you will find thorn forests in existence in these areas, typically in the region of Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, North Rajasthan. We have studied that you have thorn forest. For the growth of thorn forest, where is it that you find thorn forest? Where the average annual rainfall is around 40 to 50 centimeter. So think about it. In the northwestern part of the country, the average annual rainfall is very less. Monsoon reaches there last, withdraws from there at the earliest. But still, people grow rice. So where will they get that excess water required? So they get that by bringing up the groundwater with the help of digging of tube wells out there. So they extract the groundwater. So it is in these areas that you will find a significant amount of groundwater exploitation is also happening, where the groundwater reserves, they keep on going down. And when the groundwater reserves, they are almost depleted, if you extract groundwater after that, what happens? You will start observing contaminants coming out of it, the traces of rocks, minerals, etc. coming out of it. That is why groundwater in the region of Punjab and Haryana nowadays, they consist of heavy minerals such as cadmium, and in case of Punjab, even uranium. Now, before you get creative ideas that, okay, groundwater has uranium, so why don't we extract uranium and produce electricity? That much amount of uranium is not there. Only enough amount of uranium is there to contaminate the crop, to contaminate the food. Okay. So that is basically the predicament of our cultivation. So obviously it is not sustainable. Obviously, over a period of time, the region will be depleted in terms of groundwater, isn't it? But why do they grow rice still? That is where you get the minimum support price. The entire battle of MSP is something which plays out quite favorably in these areas. So that is why continuous wheat and rice cycle is something that these fertile plains are stuck with. Had these plains of Punjab and Haryana grown certain vegetables, then the output would have also been significant, and the earning of the farmers would also have been much larger. But it is a method of following the traditional inertia, that I have been growing rice here, my parents had grown rice here, my grandparents had grown rice here, so I will also grow rice here. So that is why farmers are not shifting from it. Nonetheless, here, when we talk about the production, so India is the second largest producer of rice in the world after China. So in 2020-21, the production was around 127.93 million tons, as per revised estimates. Revised estimates. The second revised estimates. So it has reached around 130 million tons in 2022-23. But obviously, this is not the final figure. It is only the second revised advanced estimate which is there. Then you will have the third estimate. Then you will have the actual one. So it is still an estimate out there. So the estimate is that we have increased it to around 130 million tons. Now, the major and the minor areas, major areas where the conditions, they are so very favorable that traditionally that is only grow. Another technique that you can use, or methodology that you can use to understand the major and the minor area for any crop, is to look at the staple diet of the region. Staple diet is that, in general, what is it that people consume? So in general, you will find that in all the eastern and the southern parts of the country, rice forms a very important part of the diet, be it early in the morning, or be it late at noon, or be it in evenings or at night. Rice forms an important part of the diet. So it must be growing there quite naturally. That is why people consume it on a very regular basis. Right. So that is how you can also. So rice is not a part of a regular diet in Central Asia. Why? There you will find bread products, wheat products to be growing there. So that is where you get an idea which kind of climatic conditions, but depending upon the diet itself, you can get a clue what kind of crops will grow in that area. For example, take the case of Japan. Take the case of, now when we talk about Japan, there, if the condition of temperature is around 22 23 degrees Celsius, moisture will always be available because it is across coastline. Observe their dietary pattern. Rice forms an important part. Take a look at the cuisine and the diet pattern of the East Asian civilizations. All of them consume rice as a major part of their diet. It grows naturally in those areas, isn't it? Take a look at the region of Europe. There, the conditions are very cold, not conducive for rice. There, what is the basic staple diet? You'll find fruits and also bread that is made out of wheat. So that gives you, so when you observe people of different place, observe their diet, that gives you an idea which is the crop which grows naturally in that region without any artificial supply of water, nutrition, etc. Okay. Now, then here, basically, rice depletes significant and consumes significant amount of water. So it is something which is not sustainable in the long run in water deficit areas. For example, in order to grow 1 kg of rice, you require close to around 5,000 liters of water to be provided to that field. And when that in our country, typically the water that we provide for rice, we carry out irrigation by a method which is referred to as flood irrigation, where you flood the farmland with water, allow the water to stagnate there. This is the flood irrigation. Observe, flood irrigation, where the water is lying stagnant. So there, what happens is that they will produce organic matter into the water, and that water traps huge amount of methane. So when that water evaporates and is lost, all that methane is also released. So it is not eco-friendly. It is not water friendly. It is something which is not sustainable. Okay. Then we come across the rabi crop, which is another very important food crop out there, that is wheat. So when we talk about wheat, it is something which is a subtropical or a crop which grows in temperate areas. So it requires cool growing season and bright sunshine at the time of ripening. If you take a look at the amount of rainfall, so 50 to 75 centimeter is more than sufficient amount of rainfall. So obviously, those areas of northwestern India that we talked about, which don't receive much amount of rainfall, their wheat can grow very easily, isn't it? So here, basically, the bright sunshine at the time of ripening, that is why you do require bright sunshine, dry conditions during the month of late February and March before the harvesting of the wheat. It is during this time when, if it rains suddenly, brought by western disturbances in most of the cases, that is when you have a significant amount of crop loss. And many of the crop failures, they eventually put the farmers in huge amount of debt, and eventually, in certain cases, that leads to the sad eventuality of farmer suicide. That is why you have the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, the crop insurance scheme, that is to provide support in this case. Having said that, this wheat crop, particularly in northern part of the country, it benefits from the early rains brought by western disturbances during the winter season, because at the time of sowing, it gets some amount of required moisture. So it benefits some amount from rains brought by western disturbances in months of November, December. However, When the same western disturbances, they bring rains in the month of March, it is devastating. Now, then there are two important wheat growing zones in the country. You have the Ganga Satluj plains in the northwest and the black soil region of the Deccan as well. And overall, if you observe, these are the wheat growing areas. You won't find the growth of wheat in the southern part of the country, because there the temperature is not cool or not low enough. For almost all part of the year, the temperature is higher because you come into the tropics. So that is why it is grown in subtropics. Now observe here again the same logic that you have to apply in terms of the major growing areas and the minor growing areas. So observe the major growth areas. Now these are the areas where typically you will find wheat to be a part of the daily staple diet. So these are your major areas. Okay, major areas where it is grown. India is again the second largest producer of wheat after China in the world. Now, then we come across millets. Now, millets have been grown in this subcontinent for thousands of years. In fact, before the onset of Green Revolution, majority of the farmers would concentrate on growth of millets themselves, because millets are oftentimes considered to be the farmer's friend. Why? Because they don't have many tantrums, right? They can grow in any condition, they can grow in any required situation. Even if the soil fertility is not good, millets can grow. Even if there is no external method of irrigation, millets can grow. If there is less rainfall, millets can grow. If the soil is shallow in a sloping land, millets can grow, right? If the rainfall doesn't happen for a long period of time, millets will grow. So they grow in very adverse conditions. They don't require much amount of input. So it is cost saving on the side of the farmers. Now, when you consume millets, millets basically in India, you have major, minor millets all there. But major millets is what you have to be concerned about. So the major millets in that comes the jowar, bajra, and ragi. These are the major millets. So these major millets, if you will observe, they are very nutritious. They are very nourishing. They provide you with all the important nutrients which are required for the growth of the human body. They provide you with iron, they provide you with calcium, they provide you with fiber. Now, in a country like India, where you have more than 50% of the female population suffering from one or the other form of anemia, anemia is primarily one of the major causes for the suffering of anemia is what? Deficiency of iron. So, in such a condition, millets can produce a kind of an answer. India also has the maximum amount of malnourished population almost anywhere across the globe in terms of the absolute number, not in terms of percentage, in terms of absolute number. You have many of the children suffering from stunting, wasting, and other such ailments. Now, in that situation, it is not as if they don't get supply of wheat and rice, because now various different state government programs, various different central government programs, availability of wheat and rice in certain or the other areas are ensured, as long as you have your identity card, you have the place of residence, etc., which is registered, you will get availability of food grains. But nutrition is not attained. So, in a malnourished country like India, or a country like India which suffers from a significant amount of malnourishment, these millets can always provide with a solution. Okay, so that is why the government of India had requested this, and United Nations and FAO readily accepted for 2023 to be declared as International Year of Millets. Okay, so that is where 2023, that is your International Year of Millets. Okay, now here these millets, they will provide you with nutrition. They also act as the fodder for the animals. So with the same crop and their residue, you can take care of your own requirements as well as the animal requirements as well. So thereby again serving to be farmer's best friend. So jowar, bajra, ragi, these are the millets grown in India, and they are referred to as coarse grains, right? Size also is something which comes into existence here. Then, here basically jowar producing states, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh. Now, understand what most of your childhood days you would have studied about jowar, bajra, ragi without ever trying to understand what it looks like. So, this is what is jowar, which is also referred to as sorghum. Okay, so jowar, which is also referred to as sorghum. They can grow in black soil, alluvial soil, older alluvial soil as well. They can grow. They can grow in red soil conditions as well, yellow soil conditions as well. So they have a cross utility in terms of the conditions where they grow. Okay. Now, then Bajra. Bajra, first of all, take a look at the image of it. This is what is Bajra. This is referred to as the pearl millet. So, pearl millet is a coarse grain crop considered to be poor man's staple nourishment and suitable to cultivate in dry lands. Dry lands mean what? Where irrigation is not available, where you are only dependent on rainfall for the availability of moisture. So, here, irrigation is not available. And here, dependent only on rain. Okay, which crops are supported by black soil? Cotton, then maize also. Then you can have vegetables also to be grown there. Millets obviously can be grown. All of them can be supported. Okay. Bajra can grow not exactly in desert soil, deserts, or if you consider arid soil condition, there it can grow. Desert soil, many of the time, it is synonymous with the sandy soil. Sandy soil is not perfect, but very arid condition also Bajra can grow. Because look at the conditions required. The amount of rainfall required is 40 to 60 centimeter. That much amount of rainfall is always prevalent even in many regions of Rajasthan as well, Gujarat as well, Madhya Pradesh as well, in central Maharashtra, eastern Vidarbha region, Telangana region. In all these areas, this kind of rainfall is readily available. And look at the wide temperature range, 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. That is the condition which is suitable for the growth of Bajra. Okay. Major Bajra production states in India are Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and Gujarat. Now, Bajra can also be used as valuable animal fodder. So this is about millets in terms of Bajra. Then you have Ragi. Ragi, something which appears like this, finger millets as it is referred to. So this is your pearl millet. This is what is referred to as finger millet. It is reddish in appearance, pretty much a part of staple diet. If you move into the regions of Karnataka, parts of Tamil Nadu, ragi is consumed in quite significant proportions on a day-to-day basis. So ragi is a crop of dry regions that grows well in what kind of soil? Red soil, black soil, sandy soil, loamy soil, black soil. Everywhere it will grow. In hilly areas also, even in hilly areas. Okay. It is very rich in iron, calcium, and other micronutrients and roughages. Roughages here means fiber. Yes, Vivek, you are correct there. What is also referred to as marwa, right? So that is also something which is grown there, and it is consumed in the form of chapatis, which are considered to be very nutritious, right? So here in various different parts of the country, ragi is grown and ragi is consumed. Major producing states: Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand. So in hilly areas, in hilly tracts and terrains, ragi can be grown sufficiently. That is your finger millet. Then we come across maize. Maize, it is a kharif crop, but in certain areas such as parts of Bihar, it is also grown during the Rabi season, but mostly it is a kharif crop. So it is again a crop which can be used both as food as well as for fodder. It also provides you with sufficient amount of fiber and other nutritious value as well. Now the major maize producer of the world is United States. US in itself accounts for close to around 25% and more of the global production of maize. Okay, so think about it. More than 25% of the global maize production happens from US alone. But there you will never come across the scenario that the farm prices have suddenly started falling because there is an overproduction. And why is that the case? That is because in those areas you have value addition which is done, in the sense that maize crop is utilized by the help of the processing infrastructure, etc. It is utilized in multiple different sectors. So observe that maize serves as a raw material for industrial products such as starch, oil, then protein, alcoholic beverages, food sweeteners, pharmaceuticals, packaged paper industries. In all of this you have maize which is utilized. Okay, maize is significantly used and utilized for the purpose. So here, major producing states: Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Madhya Pradesh. So that is your maize. Here also, ideal temperature is around 22 degrees above. So that is the ideal, and the rainfall requirement is around 50 to 70 centimeter. So 21 to 27 degrees Celsius grows well in old alluvial soil. Even millets can grow well in old alluvial soil. Rainfall in between 50 to 70 centimeter per year. Okay. Now, then we have pulses. Now, pulses, they form a very important part of the diet. Very, very important part of the diet, in be it in the northern part, the southern part, the eastern part, or the western part of the country. Pulses will form some or the other relevant part of the diet because these are very important sources of protein. That is why they are consumed in heavy quantity. India is amongst the largest producers and consumers of pulses across the world. Now, pulses also have a wide variety. You would also have seen in your own household, it is not only one kind of pulses which are available. You have green gram, black gram, tur, all the various different types of pulses are available. So you will observe that you have tur, urad, moong, masoor, peas, grams, different types of pulses are produced. Now, these also can grow well in older alluvium as well. Can grow in old alluvium. Grow in old alluvium. Deposits do not require much amount of irrigation, can be grown just like that. Okay, old alluvial means the Bangar soil. Remember the Bangar and Khadar? Something that you might think we studied in the last life, but we studied this week itself. So remember the Bangar and Khadar. Okay, so that is where you will find the, this is the Bangar soil. Okay. Now, states of Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, they contribute to maximum production, with past year production being 23 million tons and over more. Then comes sugarcane. Sugarcane, sugarcane is a tropical as well as a subtropical crop. Rainfall required is higher. In this case, temperature is around 21 to 27 degrees Celsius. Rainfall, if it is higher than 100 centimeter, it is always beneficial for sugarcane. But generally, on the minimum side, the rainfall should be around 80 to 100 centimeter. Now, in areas where the sugarcane is cultivated or grown, that amount of water is provided by artificial methods of irrigation rather than availability of rainfall itself. Broadly, you will find that India and Brazil, they are amongst the largest producer of sugarcane across the world. Now, sugarcane chiefly is utilized for the production of sugar. Sugar is manufactured from sugarcane. And that sugar that is manufactured, after that, sugarcane has got a lot of residues out there. So it has got molasses, bagasse. These are your residues from sugarcane production. Sugar production. So these are used for production of, very good, beautiful guys, production of biofuel, ethanol, for example, bioethanol, right? Then in few years we become the first largest country of India. Could you please elaborate what is the meaning of first largest country of India? When it comes to within India, we are already a large country. So, are you talking about the largest producer of sugarcane in the world? Is that what you were trying to write and then you got consumed by sentiment so much? Okay. Fair enough. So, yes, see, automatically in one of the COVID years, we became the largest producer. So, in certain years, we automatically are becoming the largest, and there is a competition with Brazil. So, in terms of the sugar, the issue with sugarcane is, and understand this issue. This is a larger issue. Before that, let me write about it. Uh, Paper packaging, fibers, etc. So, understand this larger issue. The larger issue at hand is that over the period of time, the world in itself is consuming sugar at a lesser rate. Just like we do know that 20 years down the line, the amount of fossil fuel consumed by the world will be lesser than what is being consumed now. Same is the case with sugar as well. You do know that overall across the globe, sugar consumption will reduce after a point of time owing to health factors and health reasons. So that means you need to diversify. You need to diversify the utilization of sugarcane rather than simply producing that white sugar. So you need to go for the kind of the those kinds of sweeteners which are benefit or not harmful for health. For example, take the case of jaggery or gur. Now, that is not harmful to health as compared to white sugar. That is why you will find people suffering from diabetes. They are advised not to consume white sugar at all, but they can consume some or the other amount of gur or jaggery out there. So, that is what we need to be mindful of. Now, what is happening that because of overproduction, we are facing a kind of a oversupply, and due to which the international market prices are crashing. So let's suppose the international market price this year was 100, next year it is becoming 85, but the government is buying it from the farmers at the fair remunerative price. In the case of sugarcane, it is fair remunerative price rather than MSP, minimum support price. Here you have FRP. Now the government is going to pay the farmers, but where is it that the government is going to get that money from? After the government is able to sell that sugar abroad as well, but international prices are lesser. So why will someone buy at a higher price from the government? So the government is unable to sell. You have large scale stock of sugar which remains unsold. Because think about it, I have bought sugar from you, at 100 rupees. Now I go there to the market, that I should be able to sell that at least at 101 rupees. Then I will have some amount of money. But then when I go to the market, I found out that the price is already 80 rupees. So what do I do? I am not able to sell. If I'm not able to sell, I won't be able to pay you money as well. That is why you will study in the portion of economy that how sugar arrears from the sugar industry is one of the most prevalent issues that agriculture faces as of today. That is why before any state election, particularly the sugar producing areas, you will observe that before the state election or the national election, immediately all the arrears for the sugar uh, price and the sugar which has been bought, they are cleared off immediately. Why? Why do they get so much arrears? Because the government is unable to sell. That is why the government is focusing upon the production of biofuel, ethanol, so that it can be used to reduce the overall import bill that we are facing from. And at the same time, the farmers get the utilization of their sugarcane, they get some money as well. Okay. Now, then, basically, the major producing areas are Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, etc. But generally, you will observe, yes, it is India. As I told you, it the position changes between India and Brazil in terms of the largest producer. Now, here you will observe that there is a trend where the sugar producing states in the country, they are shifting from north to south. Okay, sugar producing areas, they are shifting from north to south, and there are certain reasons for the same. What are the reasons? Think about it. Now, sugarcane is one of those products which you cannot keep in the storage for a long time. It starts going bad, it starts getting degraded and decomposed very quickly. So you need to have the sugar mills very close to the production centers. So all the sugar mills along with the sugarcane production is shifting to the south. The first reason is that these climatic conditions, while they are prevalent in North India for around 6 to 8 months, they are prevalent in South India for majority of the time. Almost throughout the year, you have such conditions which are prevalent, isn't it? So the temperature conditions are conducive throughout the year. If the temperature conditions are conducive, the sugarcane which grows, that is also better in terms of its quality. So there, the sugarcane which grows has also got higher sucrose content. It has been found out that the sugarcane which naturally grows in the southern part of the country, in many of the areas, it has got high amount of sucrose content. Sucrose is what provides that sweetness. Then, in the southern part of the country, you have better infrastructure in terms of farm to production center. Infrastructure in general is much better, right? The road connectivity, etc., the electricity supply for the mills, etc., is much better. So it is much more profit making business in the southern part of the country. Here in the southern part of the country, you will find lot of various different mills, corporations, etc. They run very smoothly in an organized manner, whereas in many of the northern parts of the northern states of the country, that is not to be the case. So, because of all these reasons, in general, the sugarcane producing areas of the country, they are shifting from north to south. Is that understood? Molasses and bagasse, they are the residues, the byproducts that you have after the sugar is extracted from sugarcane. If ever you happen to venture into the region of Punjab, and that is the area where it is very prominent. If ever now, obviously, Amritsar, the Wagah border, Atari, etc., these are the places that many people would visit generally. If ever you happen to be in that area, do travel by road. When you travel by road, you will find on the roadside across the large sugarcane farms, you will find these small sheds or houses of sorts where that sugarcane is continuously being utilized and processed to produce sugar. There you have a lot of bagasse and molasses on the sides. Now, there, why I suggest you those places is they will, first of all, if you go there, they will offer you out of pure gratitude and out of pure benevolence, they will offer you different types of sugar to taste, and that is brown sugar where sulfur has not been added. That is not bad, and that is in fact good. And there they will also offer you various different types of jaggeries to taste. Plus you get this very refreshing sugarcane juice as well. So do visit sometime. When you do visit these, even you will observe this same kind of practice in the region of the Godavari Delta, but there the kind of benevolence is not so significantly high because there is a large amount of commercialization there. But if you happen ever to make a plan or a trip around Amritsar, Jalandhar, Ludhiana, or Wagah border, do visit these sugarcane farms. A very good place to visit. Okay. So, yes, so those of you who are from that area, you would attest to that, right? So, that is basically where they will generously offer you that these are the various different types of jaggeries that we have produced. What do you think of the taste? What is there that we should do in this? And they will seek your opinion as well. It is a kind of a very nice feeling that you get after that. Anyways, coming back to it. Now, then we have the plantation crops. Plantation crops is basically the kind of crops which are grown in very, very large area, where you grow the same type of crop in order to produce in large bulk. Now, for plantation cultivation, you grow sometimes coconut also, sometimes you grow rubber also. Now, these are tropical crops where the average temperature required is 25 to 30 degree or 21 to 30 degrees Celsius, and rainfall should be there. There, the conditions are sufficient. But then, the major crops from where major earning happens, that is tea and coffee. Okay, tea and coffee. Okay, you need a break. Okay, okay. So we take a break, and we'll be back by around 7, I guess. Okay, so then we will continue. Till that, I put the previous slide. Okay, I'll put the previous slide. We'll take a break and we'll be back in 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. Using groundwater on a very significant basis because you are augmenting that water supply with the help of the groundwater itself. So that is again one of the issues. And when that water is stagnant over the region of the plants, now plants will produce their own biotic components which will end up producing methane. So that methane is trapped in the water, and when that water evaporates, methane is released back into the atmosphere, and methane is a greenhouse gas. So it increases global warming as well. Okay. Where is the production? How much is also asked? No, no, Roshan. Okay. Now, how to know which is the tropical crop? Generally, you will observe the crops such as rice, sugarcane, etc. These are tropical. In many of the cases, millets also largely tropical. So here, when we talk about tea and coffee, as I told you, the conditions required are largely similar, where the ideal temperature conditions here, temperature conditions is around 21 degrees Celsius to 28 degrees Celsius or 27 degrees Celsius. Coffee grows in slightly warmer conditions, 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. Then rainfall, both of them require on an average around 150 centimeter of rainfall. Okay. In which crop India produces large amount? Rice, wheat, pulses. We are amongst the largest producer. Milk products. We are amongst the largest producers across the world. Okay. feedback form. Yes. So before I forget, the announcement about the feedback form as well. So a feedback form would be generated, and I'm sure most of you would be aware about the what to do in the case of the feedback form. So many of you have been attending the morning sessions for economy as well, evening sessions for geography as well, the weekend sessions as well. Whatever has been your experience, the feedback sheets are there generated to you. Please do give us the feedback, and do fill it up, do send it back to us. Your experience about the classes, how the learning has been, whether you have managed to learn something out of it or not, or whether it has been the case that you have sat through the 23 sessions that we have had and still you have no clue. So that is why the feedback sheets are important. Okay, so please do try to fill the feedback sheets, send it to us, and for any of the subject as well, any issues that you're facing, send it to us in that feedback. Okay, so that is good to know. Good to know that it is extremely and fully satisfied, but it is for all the individuals out there. Please do fill the feedback sheets. Now here, when we talk about the rainfall requirement, it is roughly around 150 centimeter of rainfall is required, but there is a caveat attached, there is a conditionality attached. These crops, they don't grow, or they don't like standing water. So they require high amount of moisture, but there should not be standing water. That means in one area water should not become stagnant. So, what are those topographical regions where you will have very high amount of rainfall, but water will not stagnate there? Water will flow. What kind of regions? Beautiful. Very good, guys. It is the hilly areas, right? So that is why tea and coffee cultivation you will find to be very prominent in the hilly areas. So no stagnant. See, in this, what I am finding is many of you are able to derive your experiences from around you as well, in order to fulfill the gaps in terms of agricultural methodologies, etc. That is the only approach which will carry you through the portion of Indian geography. Indian geography is not something to be restricted to the books. Okay, observe your surroundings, and as we move ahead to the portion of population distribution, etc., we will further validate that fact. So no standing water. No standing water. As a result of that, this will grow in slopes, hill slopes. Now, there is one minor difference, however, between tea and coffee. And if ever you get an opportunity to visit these coffee plantations, you will find that minor difference. So, the regions, first of all, let us talk about which are the regions where you observe this. So, tea, majorly, you will find them to be growing in the Nilgiris, right? Then in the Nilgiris, that is in the congruent zone of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala border, in those areas, from the region around Munnar to Uti, in all those areas, you will find that tea cultivation and tea plants. Then, other than that, in the northern reaches around Himachal, Assam, North Bengal, and also parts of other northeastern states as well. Okay, whereas coffee is largely concentrated where the temperature is found to be in this range. So largely around the region of Karnataka, parts of Kerala, parts of Tamil Nadu, that is around the region of Nilgiris. Of Nilgiris. Okay, now here what you experience is the difference between tea and coffee is, while tea can grow in the exposure to natural sunshine very easily, but coffee doesn't grow well when it is exposed to direct rays of the sun. So coffee plants grow well under shade. So coffee plants grow well, grow well under shade. That is why in majority of the coffee plantations, so again, if you have to visit coffee plantation, ideal places to visit: Chikmagalur in Karnataka, Coorg in Karnataka. Even if you go to Wayanad in Kerala, there also you will find many of the coffee plantations out there. Even in certain areas of Uti as well, you will find that. So in that entire Congress zone, so you will find wherever coffee plantation is there, it will be easily distinguishable from the tea plantation. In the case of tea plantation, you'll find the lush green tea gardens giving you a very picturesque scene to say. But then when you talk about the coffee plantations and the coffee plants, so these coffee plants, they grow under the shade of a larger tree. So that is why you will find that people, they grow some kind of a tree, and underneath that tree you will have a series of coffee plants which are out there. So they will always grow well in under shade. They will never be growing well when exposed to direct rays of the sun. Okay. Now, then after that, we move to the fiber crops. And what about the soil type? Generally, loamy soil or any kind of soil which is well drained. Okay. Is that the reason why the South Indians have coffee in morning instead of tea? So it is tea is also produced in the Nilgiris of one of the finest quality out there. So it is not, but basically coffee is very prevalent, and that is why again filter coffee is one of those areas. Today we will be able to complete agriculture. Don't worry. Megha, I'm an account student. My starting days, I have nothing understood in geography, but now not any problem. Okay. For a moment, I was concerned that you have not understood anything in geography, but good to know that you have understood this. Okay. So basically, now coming back to it, that is fiber crop. What is fiber crop? And before that, again, humble gratitude for all the series of good comments that you are writing. But please understand, this is not the last session. Tomorrow again we are meeting, and we are also going to meet again next Saturday, that is on 2nd, for a special doubt clearing session. We are going to meet on next Saturday, maybe for a separate mapping module also. We will have a separate class next Saturday, but we are going to meet again tomorrow. We are going to meet again on 2nd as well. I hope that is not too much of a burden for you. Now, when we talk about fiber crops, these are those crops from which fibrous materials can be extracted, which can be utilized for the manufacturing of, let's suppose, bags, right? Apparels, clothing apparels out there. So, generally, you have cotton and jute, which serve the purpose of fiber crops. But even coconut, now the outer shell of dried coconut, if you would have seen, now that outer shell of dried coconut is also sometimes used as a fiber to manufacture various different types of ropes, baggages out there, right? So even coir mattresses. So coconut sometimes is also used as a fiber. But generally, across the country, you'll find the increased nowadays lotus also, but lotus fiber is very costly, costlier than even silk. Okay. So this is basically, when we talk about fiber crops, largely you have to concentrate around cotton and jute. Okay. Cotton and jute. Now, this cotton and jute, basically, both of them are utilized. Cotton for a larger extent, jute not so much, because jute is slightly a rough fiber. So jute is not something which is used for clothing. Cotton can be used for your carry bags as well, for packaging materials as well, for clothing apparels as well. So cotton utility is much higher. Now cotton grows very well in black soil. In black soil areas, cotton will grow very well. But please don't get confused that cotton grows only in black soil. There's a difference between them. Cotton grows very well in black soil, but it is not only to be grown in black soil. It can grow in alluvial soil as well. So that is why you will find cotton cultivation in Punjab as well. In the Doaba region of Punjab, cotton is also cultivated, right? In some parts of Andhra Pradesh also cotton is cultivated, where you don't have black soil. So ideally it grows very well in black soil condition, but it can grow in alluvial soil as well. Okay, so here grows very well in black soil and alluvial soil. So here, rather than learning the states where the cotton grows, that it grows in Gujarat, it grows in Maharashtra, it grows in some parts of Madhya Pradesh, it grows in some parts of northern Karnataka, don't start learning this. Try to think where you find the black soil. In India, where do you find the black soil? Deccan Trap and Malwa Plateau. These are the areas where you find the black soil conditions. So cotton will naturally grow very well there. Other than that, Andhra Pradesh, parts of northern Karnataka, and also parts of Punjab, southern Punjab. That southern part of Punjab has started growing cotton, not for a very long time, but it is a kind of a crop diversification where they're diversifying the kind of crops that they grow in general. Now, this is a kharif crop. Kharif crop. Now, it requires rainfall around 75 to 100 centimeter. Okay. Even less than 100 centimeter, roughly around 75 centimeter, roughly plus minus 510, it will grow. Then temperature around 21 to 27, 28 degrees Celsius, also even 30 degrees Celsius plus, it will grow, but not beyond 35. So as long as the temperature exists and prevails up till around 30, 31, 32 degrees Celsius, it will grow. Okay. Then 6 to 7 months of growing time. Okay. It does require around 6 to 7 months of growing period or a growing time. Okay. It cannot basically, so for those 210 days, it requires absolute frost free conditions. That is, the ground should not freeze up during the winter. So in those conditions only it will grow. So 210 days of frost free conditions. Frost, we all would have known by this time, right now, that what do we mean by frost? When the temperature reduces below freezing point, and then after that condensation happens, then rather than dew formation, you observe the frost formation. Okay, so frost is very bad for cotton. Okay, now then after that, jute. Now jute grows well in well drained newer alluvium, that is khadar soil. A very well drained newer alluvium. So for a long period of time, the center of jute production would be those areas which would get flooded every year, so that there would be enough new silt and sediment which could support jute, because it extracts a lot of fertility out of soil. The region around Murshidabad would be the hub for jute productivity and jute production to happen. So here also the rainfall requirement is very high. Rainfall requirement 150 centimeter. And this is the crop which benefits from the pre-monsoon showers. The Kal Baisakhi that we have studied, Kal Baisakhi, which does impact the region of West Bengal and Assam, where in Assam it is also referred to as by which name? Kal Baisakhi is known in Assam by which name? Yes, it is Bardoli Chira. So that is where you have these crops which benefit out of it. Then here you will observe that this also in a way requires heavy amount of rainfall, flooded areas, and a growing period of 5 to 6 months. Here you will find regions, for example, Assam, West Bengal. West Bengal used to be the hub of jute production. In fact, we will study in the next module and that how the industrialization of the entire region of Kolkata that was initiated in 1855 by establishment of the first jute processing mill, which was established in Rishra. So that is where the industrialization process began, and other industries they pitched in, they came in. Tea processing industries they also established in that region, and hence the entire Hooghly corridor that you have of industrialized area that happened after the jute production. Assam, West Bengal, parts of Bihar, parts of Jharkhand, and Odisha. Okay. Cotton growing areas, we have already seen, isn't it? So you have Gujarat, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Punjab, parts of Karnataka, and parts of Andhra Pradesh. Okay. Delhi NCR, you can grow cotton. See, Delhi NCR, the conditions can suit cotton growth. But Delhi NCR, the problem is that many areas of cultivable lands are not left anymore. And whichever lands are left, there you have food grains which have been which are being grown, or in the case of the Yamuna floodplains, you have vegetables which are being grown. So that is a different aspect altogether, but the conditions are prevalent. Okay. Temperature for jute, again, in the higher extent, 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. That is the temperature. Jute is referred to as the golden fiber because of the coloration of the fiber in itself. Okay. Now, Uttar Pradesh also there is cotton which is grown. In parts of Haryana also cotton is being grown. Please understand, there's a difference between the areas where the growing regions and the areas where they can be grown. Areas where they can be grown, let's suppose in my backyard also I create a condition where I can grow these crops. But that doesn't mean that state becomes a growing region. Okay, so understand that difference overall. Temperature for jute 25 to 30, 32, 33 degrees Celsius, jute will grow. So then we come to sericulture. Sericulture is basically rearing of the silkworms to produce silk. That process is sericulture. And silk is also a kind of a fiber. Silk is also used for purposes of manufacturing of apparels, for your interior decor, etc. Now, this silk industry that provides employment opportunities directly or indirectly to close to around 6 million people out there. Okay, so the employment opportunity is quite significant. It is very, very high. So, in all the smaller areas, the smaller hilly regions where you don't have much scope for lot of employment generation, there is not much amount of infrastructure connectivity. For example, parts of Chhattisgarh, parts of Odisha, parts of Jharkhand, parts of Bihar, parts of Telangana, which don't have perfect amount of infrastructure connectivity. The hilly areas, the tribal regions, oftentimes you are confronted with these type of questions, that how do you bring economic prosperity in those areas. So sericulture is one of those methodologies. So how is it that silk is produced? So the process is simple. It has been produced for thousands of years now. So you have the silkworm, and that silkworm, initially it starts at a young age. When it is at a very young stage, it starts consuming the leaves. It consumes leaves in very large quantity, many of the times equivalent to its body weight. That much amount of leaf it will consume. Now, after some time, it goes into the stage of metamorphosis, where it grows into an adult. But before that, it wraps itself around in a cocoon like structure, kind of an envelope like structure. And how does it wrap itself? It secretes that thread from its mouth, and it continues to weave that thread around itself so as to completely hide itself from the outside surrounding. And then in that cocoon, that body matures. Now that cocoon is utilized. That cocoon is put into boiling water. And there, very slowly, that thread which has been wrapped around, that thread is extracted. That is the thread which is silk. Right? So depending upon the type of leaves that these silkworms consume, the type of silk also varies. The quality of silk also varies. The major quality of silk produced in India are four. That is mulberry, which is produced in largest bulk quantity, where you have the silkworms consuming the mulberry leaves, hence the name mulberry silk. Then you have tussar, which is referred to as the wild silk, where they can consume any kind of leaf and they can weave a silk thread around it. So, tussar silk, oftentimes, naturally, when it is produced, it is not of the finest quality. For a long period of time, tussar would be used for interior decors, right? For the furnishings, for the furniture items. They would not be used for apparels and clothing. But slowly and steadily, because it would be very hard to maintain, but as slowly and steadily the processing infrastructure has developed, thereby the kind of tussar silk which is manufactured is also becoming finer and finer. So now we are producing some of the finest grade of silk saris which are made from tussar silk. Then you have muga. Muga is chiefly produced in the region of Assam, and that is what is also referred to as royal silk, because muga silk would be used. It is something which is dull white in colorish appearance, and it would be used traditionally for dressing up the royal Ahomian households. Right, the royal Ahomian culture that you have, the royals of the Ahom culture, they would always use that muga silk. There you have the name muga gaining the name of royal silk. Okay, it is again very difficult to maintain. Then you have Eri. Eri is also what is referred to as the peace silk. The- it is also Inadi silk, as it is referred to. This is the only variety of silk. Why it is referred to as a peace silk is not because after you wear it, you start promoting peace in the world. Not because of that. But this is the only method of production of silk where you don't have to kill the silkworm in the process of extraction. Okay, so these are the four major varieties of silk produced in the country. The major type is mulberry. This is produced in majority. In majority. This is the one which you generally encounter in the various different types of silk saris out there, silk apparel, silk kurtas out there. So it is of mulberry kind. In majority, it is the most prominently used. Here, the worms, they feed on mulberry leaves. Then you have the muga, which is produced in the region of Assam. right? It is also referred to as the royal silk. Then you have tassar, which is the wild silk, where they feed on any kind of leaves. Observe where tassar is produced: Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, parts of Telangana, parts of Maharashtra, the Vidarbha region of Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, the areas which are not particularly well to do in terms of economic and social developmental parameters. So, the next time when you face a question not from geography but in the form of society, where the question oftentimes is framed: what can be done to improve the level of income in these tribal areas, in the areas which are economically socially backward? Sericulture is one of the solutions that, if you are able to provide, that will be an interconnect not only from geography, but it will be a significant departure from what the rest of the people will be writing. Rest of the people will be writing about increase the service sector, increase the opportunity for them by infrastructure, connectivity, construction activities, that you will also write. But it is these kind of varieties that you add in your answer which immediately will create an impression in the mind of the evaluator, and for that answer itself you will be able to outperform your competition by easily around 1 to 2 marks. So the evaluator also keeps on looking for something which is very new, something which is not there in all the other copies. So that advantage you will get. Okay. Then you have the Erie silk or the peace silk. Now that is something which is produced in certain areas, and this is also referred to as the silk. This is also used for apparel and apparel usage. Okay. Now, then we come to the process of irrigation. What do we mean by irrigation? Bombyx mori is the scientific name, yes. What do we mean by irrigation? Rubber is not important for exam, not so much, but if you are interested, let me tell you, it is one of those tropical crops where a plantation kind of cultivation is carried out, where in large areas, under the presence of heavy amount of moisture and conditions around 25 to 30 degrees Celsius of temperature, the rubber plants, they grow. It is the trees which grow, and basically from the bark of the tree, the outer skin is then extracted. After that, there is a stick which is poked in, and the tree starts emanating some amount of liquid resin. That liquid is collected, and from that rubber is basically manufactured. In Kerala, yes, the latex. In Kerala, rubber grows highly. Yes, in Kerala, that is where it is observed. Okay. Now, then after that, when we talk about irrigation, irrigation is the artificial supply of water which is given to increase the production of the crops, because the crops, they require water availability. Now most of the crops or most of the areas, they are dependent on rainfall itself. So that means there is a chance of crop failure. So artificially, if you are able to provide water to the farmland, you will be able to significantly improve your production. In fact, I will take this moment to tell you that, and this is something that you would have studied even in your portion of history, that traditionally, if you take a look back into the pages of history, whichever civilization, whichever kingdom, whichever ruler has worked upon irrigation, there the revenue has jumped, the kingdom has become mighty. For example, take the case in across the world, in the case of the Byzantines. Now, the Byzantines, they inherited that practice from the Romans themselves, but basically the Byzantines, they built very large aqueducts, aqueducts which are still to be seen if you do visit Turkey or Rome or Italy in itself. There also you will observe these aqueducts. These are very large channels, and these divert river water to far off distances across the cropland. So that availability of water provided the opportunity for the farmers to increase their amount of production, made the Byzantine revenue stronger, made the Byzantine empire stronger. When the Turkish invaders or the Turkish rulers came into India during the time of the Delhi Sultanate, at that point of time, they brought in with them the Persian wheel, what is also referred to as the Rahat system. where you would have seen it in the movies or the videos, or in practical scenario it is not that much prevalent nowadays, where you have on a wheel a series of buckets which are tied, and then a, a bull moves across the farmland, and thereby, or across the region of the well, and that turns the wheel. And as that wheel is turned, that bucket automatically dips itself into water, brings that water up, drains it into a channel, and that provides water to the farmland. Now, it is as basic a system as it can be, but that also managed to significantly increase the productivity of food and crops in the entire Delhi Yamuna Doab region. Now, you would have read about Tughlaqs in the portion of medieval history. If not, the next time when you study it, try to focus upon it. Firoz Shah Tughlaq, he is credited with the establishment of a canal and in the region of Haryana, and that canal system also augmented the production. Vijayanagar Empire worked upon the method of irrigation, increased the production. When the production increases, revenue increases, thereby the kingdom has got the opportunity to bolster its defenses, etc. So, in the much modern era, during the 1800s, late 1800s, in modern history, you would study about the canal system and the canal irrigation developed in the present day Pakistan region of Punjab. Right? So, there, all these canals were developed. That brought about agricultural prosperity. So, that brought about significant amount of economic prosperity as well in those areas. So, irrigation is always associated with increased crop productivity. In India, sadly, around 60% of the farmlands, we don't have access to irrigation. Around 60%, 55 to 60% of the farmlands, they are still dependent on the rainfall. That if rainfall will happen, our crops will get water, otherwise they don't. So what happens as a consequence of it is that majority of the regions, they experience crop failures. They experience drought-like conditions. Climate change means unpredictable weather scenarios are going to occur at much greater frequency. Now, traditionally, as India became independent, now, if you talk about the ancient part, during the time of the Mauryans themselves, you have evidences of that you had the development of wells, the wells from which you can physically extract water. So that was developed for a long time. But then canal systems started being developed. Modern India, independent India, immediately thought about increasing that canal area. And those many regions in the periphery of Delhi, they started experiencing the building of widespread level of canals. But there was a problem with canal irrigation. The problem was that while it could carry water from a far away distance, it was very costly to build. And they're also getting permanent amount of stable amount of water availability, that would always be a tough task, because in canals evaporation is a major factor, loss of water due to evaporation. And there in the late 70s and 80s, you came across a scenario where in many states such as UP, Bihar, etc., you had many of the canals which were completed on paper. On paper, it was executed and completed. But when you went onto the ground, there was not an iota of canal. So there was a large scale of political administrative mismanagement, corruption to the widest scale. Now, here again, I'm not making any political statement. I'm not making any state sensitive statement. So, if you are sensitive about any particular state, let me in itself, in the beginning itself, tell you whichever state that you belong from is the best state in the country. It is the best state in the world. It is the best state in the entirety of the Milky Way galaxy. So, please don't get offended. But here, while we are discussing it, we need to objectively discuss what are the lacunae and the benefits. So all those who start getting offended by this, that why I'm telling that this happened, or here corruption happened, there corruption happened, I hope that you don't get offended. Okay. Now, having said that, we learned a kind of a lesson. People also learned a lesson, in the sense people would be made to wait for years altogether to get a connection from canal. Now, neither the canal would be constructed nor they would get water. So people started constructing their own Tube wells. Tube well system had come in, whereby what is a tube well? Tube well is just like a well system. The difference is that rather than physically extracting the water with the help of a bucket system, you drill a pipe into the underground water region. And with the help of a motor set, you extract that water from the underground and spray it around or use it for cultivation. So that is a tube well. Now, when you have tube well, it provides you with flexibility. You are not dependent on the government anymore. Yes, you do require electricity, but what many of the farmers would do is they would have or utilize a generator set on their own to operate those tube wells, right? And then those tube wells would provide them water whenever they would want, not dependent on the canal water. So from 1960s onwards, tube wells started becoming much more prominent method of irrigation. Till 1960s, canal system was the most prominent method of irrigation. From 1960s onwards, tube wells started becoming very prominent. But then, over a course of 3 to 4 decades, lessons were learned from there as well. The practice was, which everybody knows about it, all those associated with even remotely with the farming community or the practice of farming, you would know about it, that the general practice is that during the night, you switch on the tube well, you go to sleep, have a nice sleep, put on an alarm at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, switch off the tube well. Till that point of time, your entire land would have been watered. Now that led to immense amount of wastage of water. That meant a lot of water is put into those areas where it is not even required. The soil started turning saline. So then came the modern methods of irrigation, what is also referred to as the sprinkler and drip irrigation. Can we use ancient time irrigation points in the geography answers? They will never cut your marks for additional information. Please get an idea of that. If there is a scope to be written, obviously do that, but don't try to fit in deliberately. If there is a scope, obviously do that. Okay, so here, what is a sprinkler? We'll come to drip later. What is a sprinkler? Sprinkle, sprinkles water. It imitates a rainfall characteristic. So what is done? If you have a land, now there, with the help of the pipelines, you have these sprinklers which get supply of water. Now these sprinklers, they rotate and they spray water all around like a rainfall. If ever you go to a hockey match or a hockey stadium, nowadays even in cricket stadiums, in many of the places, football stadiums that you go to, these sprinklers, or in gardens that you go to, so these sprinklers are oftentimes used. So this is for conservation of water. These are your sprinkler systems. Okay, these are your sprinklers. Why sericulture is not done in northern India? Agriculture is the mainstay there. Okay, the crop cultivation is the mainstay. The vegetation, anyways, natural vegetation is very less, almost absent in the northern part. That is why. Then we have drip. You would have seen or witnessed a drip. Generally, for medical terminologies, drop by drop it starts falling. Now this works on a very basic fundamental, that if I have a farmland, and here, let's suppose I have a crop here, let's suppose I have a crop here, I have a crop here, I have a crop here. Now, water is required in this place, in this place, in this place, and this place. Water is not required here. Water is not required here in between. Water is not even required here or here. So this drip system works upon this fundamental. So what is done is that a pipe is laid. A pipe is laid running across this entire network. And through that pipe, water is supplied. Drop by drop, water falls directly at the roots. drop by drop. This ensures there's a greater utilization. Now, government has made it a kind of a policy, more crop per drop. So that is also what works here. To add on to that, you also have the factor where you don't have the over irrigation carried out. And also, many of the times, in many of the cases, you would have seen that the prevalent practice is that you dump so much of water with a certain amount of force that there's a soil erosion as well. The roots start getting exposed, then the plant will die. So that soil erosion also doesn't happen. Now, this also provides you with a unique facility and an ability where you can supply, or what you can do is that in the water, you can mix certain amount of fertilizers. And those fertilizers, which are soluble in water, obviously, those fertilizers, you can mix those fertilizers into water, which are soluble, pass them through the pipeline. Now, these fertilizers, as much quantity as you want, they will be supplied directly at the roots. So there will be greater efficiency. That process is what is referred to as fertigation. Fertigation. Fertigation is what? Application of fertilizer along with irrigation. Application of fertilizer along with irrigation. Yes, there was a question asked from this. I think it was in 2020 prelims when a question was directly asked from this. So that again tells you that how the portion of current affairs becomes relevant. That is why I suggest to you, do get a read of Down to Earth magazine. That is very enriching as an experience. It will help you in the portion of environment, geography, and the portion of current affairs, the newer developments which come in. Do try to get a hold of that magazine. Okay, this system is very good for, it helps save a lot of water as well. So it is in fact this system, that is why when people say that why to become an is officer, I will take a couple of moments to tell you that how few is officers, they change the entire fate of the Vidarbha region of Maharashtra. Vidarbha region, that is the eastern part of Maharashtra, that is very drought prone. So you had very frequent crop failures because traditionally that would be a region which would grow sugarcane, and sugarcane requires large amount of water. They would be dependent on availability of rainfall. Rainfall won't come, the crops would fail. They would go to the money lenders, borrow more money. This would continue, end in farm suicide. So when it was later on realized, then what the bureaucrats they took as a decision is that okay, we will give you the loans at very cheap rates. We will give you loans very easily, provided you install that fertigation system or drip irrigation system, and secondly, change your crop from sugarcane to millets so that they are more resilient to dry conditions. And then after some time, after a few years, the rate of farm suicides they did start coming down. So that is why once you become one of these bureaucrats or is officer, you have the opportunity to change hundreds and millions of lives. So all those of you who say that the motivation level goes down, whenever it comes down, imagine what you can do once you become an is officer, the lives that you will change. That is something unparalleled. Okay, now then, the sources of irrigation. Now, the sources of irrigation which are available, which are utilized in an area, that is very much a sum product or a dependent on the geography or the topography of a region. Let me cite an example. Suppose I talk about the alluvial soil. Here I have alluvial soil. Okay. And here groundwater is available at a depth of, let's suppose, 20 feet, as it is available in many of the areas in northern parts. And then I talk about peninsular plateau. where the groundwater is available at a depth of, let's suppose, 100 feet or 80 feet. Now, out of both of these two places, let's name this A, let's name this B. Out of A and B, where do you think installing a tube well would be easier? Where do you think? A or B? Always A, right? Because digging into the soil is easier as compared to digging into the hard rock, and water is available at a lower level, right? So the geography of a place decides which kind of irrigation is easier. Now, what is a tank? Tank is where you are supposed to collect water by surrounding a particular region so that water is collected there and then you use it during the dry condition. Now, if I ask you, building a tank like structure is easier in which of these places, A or B? Where is it that building a tank like structure would be easier? Perfect. It is B. Because in A, if you construct a tank, all that water will start seeping. So you need to cement the bottom as well. Higher cost. Here, all you need to do is collect some stones. All around it, collect some stones. Water will automatically get accumulated in that region. So that is why you will find that tank irrigation is much more prominent in the region of Telangana, in the region of Andhra Pradesh, in the region of Karnataka. And the tube well irrigation is much more prominent in the portions of northern India. It is a different matter altogether. With the development of technology now, even in Karnataka, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, everywhere, people are starting to dig a lot of tube wells. But that is a different matter altogether. But generally, a common choice is made out of the geographical realities of a place. So different sources of irrigation are developed or used depending upon the topography, such as rainfall, availability of surface or groundwater, nature of rivers, requirement of crops, etc. So you have wells and tube wells, canals, tanks, and other methods. So here you will observe that tube wells and well system, that is the most prevalent method of irrigation still used across the country, with more than 46% of the irrigational requirements met by tube wells. Overall, still understand, majority of the farmland of our country does not have, I will repeat, majority of the farmlands across the country does not have access to irrigation. They are still dependent on rainfall. Out of the areas which have availability of irrigation, you have tube well as the major source. Okay, so this is the difference between well and tube well. In the case of the well, you don't need to use a motor set or a pump set. In the case of a tube well, you do use a motor to extract water. So tube well allows you with the flexibility to extract water from a greater depth, which was not available in the case of a well. You cannot dig a well for 100 feet and then start lowering the bucket to the region where water is not even visible. That can be done with the help of a tube well. So tube wells, bore wells, etc., they come into the same category. So basically, they help you to extract water from a much greater depth as well. These are the regions where you have a significant amount of tube well utility in high amount, in high quantity, plain areas, if you will observe. Then when you talk about canal system used to be very prevalent up till the 60s. Here you divert the river water to make the water available for the nearby farmlands, right? But the problem would be that if the river level in itself would be low, then what? Then land acquisition would be very significant task or a hurdle. Now, just to give you an example, those of you belonging from the state of Uttar Pradesh would vouch for it. In Uttar Pradesh, you have a canal irrigational system. The project was initiated in the 70s, right? In the mid to late 70s. And it was completed last year, inaugurated last year. Think about it. So that project completion took around 40 years for building a canal. Shah Jahan managed to construct the entirety of Taj Mahal in 22 years. And we managed to construct those canal in a span of close to around 40 years. That tells you the amount of how historically, as I told you, during the 70s and the 80s, we had a series of such canals which were completed on paper, but they never realized on land. So the inefficiency was very high. That is why now the scheme has come of Accelerated Irrigation Benefit Program, AIBP, right, which comes under the overarching government scheme of the Krishi Sichai Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sichai Yojana, which brings water or which makes methodologies to provide irrigational facilities. Now, here in the region of Gujarat, however, there has been a kind of an innovation. Whichever state you observe, your state itself, whichever state you observe an innovative method in farming, use that in your answer writing. In Gujarat, an innovation was brought in where, in order to prevent the loss of water due to evaporation, these canal sets would be, or the canals in itself, in many areas would be covered with solar panels. Think about it. Think about the ingenuity of or the solution here. Now, it was obviously again something implemented by the bureaucrats themselves. So, here you had the canal systems covered with solar panels. What did that mean? That evaporation won't happen. And secondly, in all these areas, you can produce electricity as well. So, if you use these modern innovative methods, you can make some use out of it. Otherwise, canal system is very, very costly to implement. However, you have some of the successful implementations, such as the Indira Gandhi Canal System, which carries water to the drier areas of Jaisalmer region as well. But there again, the problem has been that due to excess amount of evaporation, the water available in many areas is very saline. Even though that Indira Gandhi Canal System has managed to bring many areas under cultivation in the otherwise deserted area, but still you have a lot of issues associated with it. If you build a canal, it helps you also in terms of navigability. If the canal is large enough, not in a small canal setup. Okay. Now, after this, do we have to learn all the canal's name? So you already have received the answer for that, Kanaya, isn't it? Is there a doubt which still prevails? The SME has given you the answer. The important ones, that is the one like Indira Gandhi Canal, or only the one that you see in the news. That is the only one that you need to keep in mind. Otherwise, canal names are not to be learned. Okay. Yes, Ragini, that system is there in Gandhinagar. So, at present time, does canal exist? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. They do. Issue of Indira Gandhi Canal is that the Indira Gandhi Canal there, the water availability to the last extent is not so significant. It is limited, right? And that is why here overall the flow reduces in the canal system. Now, when the flow reduces, there will be greater evaporation. Now, when there is a greater evaporation, the water will start turning saline overall, isn't it? So that is a major issue. When the drip irrigation system is used as a method of irrigation in fields, how come the pipes don't interfere with plowing and sowing? So that entire network is put in. That entire network can be dismantled as well. If ever you visit such of these farms, again, the pipe is made out of many connectors in place. So you can dismantle them. You can carry out the plowing and then you sow the crops, sow the seeds, and then you put in and assemble the entire setup. Okay. And then, as long as the crops require, you grow it up. After, at the time of harvesting, again, you can dismantle it. Okay. No, that is not expensive. It is a cheap setup. It is not a very expensive setup out there. Okay. Questions from canal is not very frequently asked. Whatever is asked is about the problems faced in the canal system. The problem faced is very costly, difficult for land acquisition, right? Long gestation period for construction. Availability of water is very variable. Getting connection process from the canal is also a costly bureaucratic process. Also, red tapeism is involved. So these are various methods or various disadvantages. Okay. Now, construction of hand pumps. No, hand pumps basically won't provide you with a sustained irrigation, right? Sustained irrigation with the help of the hand pumps you cannot provide. At max, you can have few crops that you take care of, but a large field you will never be able to take care with the help of a hand pump, unless and until special abilities for hand pump, and for that I don't need to give reference. So here, main canal irrigated areas: Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, and Bihar. They account for the majority of the areas. Then you have the tanks. In the case of the tanks, you have basically the foundations, which is done. Excess water during rainfall or from the river, that is held in a region. It is accumulated, and then that is used during the dry season. So that is basically the tank irrigation. It is much more suitable as a method of irrigation, much cheaper as well in the case of the peninsular part of the country. It is practiced in the northern plains as well, mind you. Northern plains also you will find many of the areas having tank irrigation, but then much more prominent and utilizable in southern part, because in southern part you don't have that clustered density of farmland as you observe in the northern part of the country. So if you have a decluttered portion of the land, obviously canal cannot serve the purpose. Canal serves the purpose where the farmlands are very close to each other. So in decentralized case, either tube wells or tanks. Tube wells are very costly to be installed there, so tanks are better. Now, this is where the Telangana government had started a very innovative scheme for that matter, and that was Mission Kakatiya. Now, under Mission Kakatiya, Telangana government wanted to instill the construction of more canals, more tanks, so that people become water sufficient, or the regions become water sufficient. But along with that, they also provided a kind of a further innovation that do one thing. In those tanks where the water is accumulated, why don't you grow fishes? Why don't you rear prawns, shrimps, and fishes there? That would also serve as a mode of income for you. You can sell them. So this is all to augment the farm income, to improve the level of farm income. Okay, so these schemes you can always, so whichever state scheme that you come across, or the central government scheme that you come across, which appears to be very innovative out there, that is why you read these magazines. So that's something you can highlight. Okay, now then, tank irrigation is popular in the peninsular part of India, where in the region of Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, these are the leading states. So this is the leading portion. But as I told you, also observed in northern part of the country, but significantly in the portion of Jharkhand, that is in the Chota Nagpur plateau also, you will find this. Now, the agricultural productivity and efficiency. So when we say the agricultural productivity or efficiency, so what is it? So in any piece of land, let's suppose I have a piece of land here, right? Someone else has the same piece of land, right? Now here I produce, let's suppose 40 kg. Here someone produces 20 kg. So obviously the efficiency is higher here. How do you measure that? You measure that with a quantity which is oftentimes referred to as the yield per hectare. Per hectare, what is the yield? Now, there are various different terminologies and measuring methodologies which are used to define that. One of them is cropping intensity. That in one farmland, in one piece of farmland, how many times are you able to bring that under cultivation within the year? Whether you are going for monocropping or you can go for multi-cropping. That is cropping intensity, right? So what is that? So basically it is number of times a piece of land is cultivated in a given year across the various different cropping seasons. For example, suppose I have a piece of land. Let's suppose its area is 1 acre. Now cropping intensity is expressed as what? It is the ratio of the gross cropped area upon the net sown area multiplied by 100, because it is calculated in percentage. So multiplied by 100. What is net sown area? What is gross cropped area? Net sown area is the area of the farmland. Of farmland. So in this example, what is the net sown area? It is 1 acre. Gross cropped area, that is in total throughout the year, what is the area that you have cultivated? So throughout the year, area cultivated. Now here, let's suppose during the Kharif season, I grow rice here. For in the entirety of 1 acre, I grow rice. I harvest it. Then again during the Rabi season, let's suppose I grow wheat, but I grow it in 0.75 acres. Rice I have grown in 1 complete acre. So in 1 year, if I ask you, what is the total area that I have cultivated? What will be that in 1 year? Total area cultivated will be what? Good. It will be 1.75, isn't it? Total area cultivated will be 1.75 acres. That is my gross cropped area, isn't it? This is my gross cropped area. And this is my net sown area. That is the area of the farmland. So what is the cropping intensity in this case? How 1.75? Because I have grown rice in 1 acre. I have harvested rice. Then again in the Rabi season, I have grown wheat for 0.75 acre. So the total area cultivated won't be 1 plus 0.75. 1 plus 0.75 is 1.75. So cropping intensity in this case will be 1.75 divided by 1 into 100. That will be 175. Isn't it? So that means we are bringing this particular piece of land into cultivation for more than once during the year. Right? So that is basically your cropping intensity. So you have various different regions of different cropping intensity. For example, in the region of Punjab, Haryana, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, generally the cropping intensity is higher than 175 in many of the cases. It is around 200. In certain areas, it is even 225. So you have 3 to 4 crops which are grown in the same piece of farmland during 1 year. Then high cropping intensity from 150 to 175 that you will observe. Then you have moderate cropping intensity in the region of Karnataka, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh. Then in the hilly areas, you have low cropping intensity, generally where the conditions are not very favorable or suitable. So Gujarat, Rajasthan, Jammu Kashmir, in all these areas, you have a low cropping intensity out there, isn't it? So that is how the cropping intensity gives you an idea that how many times within the year a region has been brought under cultivation. The number of times a piece of land is cultivated in a given year across the cropping seasons. That is your reflection of cropping intensity. Okay. Now, then after that, no calculation won't be asked there. Calculation of cropping intensity is not to be asked. How Assam is in high intensity? Because you have the plains, isn't it? You have the Brahmaputra plains. Okay, that is why. Chituri, if a rice harvested twice in a year, then can we consider gross cropping area to be 2 acres? Yes, in that case you can. Okay. right? How some chemical works fast in growth of crops. Shelja, they will augment the nutrient availability to the plants, and that increases the rate of metabolism in many of the plants. Okay. Now we come to the concept of agro and social forestry. What do we mean by that? The concept of agro and social forestry. It talks about that particular situation where for a long period of time the government has also been interested in increasing the forest and the tree cover, and also doing something to increase the farm income. Agro and social forestry falls perfectly in the solution for both these issues. For example, let's suppose you have a farmland. Let's suppose you have a farmland. Now, in that farmland, around the border of that farmland, let's suppose you have planted a lot of trees. Across the bordering areas, you have carried out the cultivation and plantation of lot of trees. Now, while these will improve the agroecology of the region, it will also end up providing alternate source of income, because when the trees once they will mature, you can basically sell those products as well, so it augments your income as well. So that is the concept where you talk about the agroforestry. Agroforestry, if you take a look at this, this is where you will observe that in the farmland you will observe that trees are also grown, interspersed distribution of trees are observed. That is basically your agroforestry. Okay, so the objectives are very simple: to improve the green cover, to improve the agroecology of a region, to improve the income level of the farmers, because they will be able to sell the produce, the wood of that tree itself. The various different byproducts of that tree can be sold, right? So, increasing forest area and restoring the ecological balance, meeting basic rural requirements and needs, better returns, controlling pollution as well. It will absorb or soak in the excess carbon dioxide, and generation of employment based upon the forest products. This was done to improve the overall income level, especially, yes, just like in orchards. Okay. What is the difference between productivity and efficiency? Productivity refers to the total amount of produce in general. Efficiency is the rate at which you are producing. That is the broader difference. Okay. No, trees, they don't take in much amount of fertility. So it is not as if they will damage the crops there. Now, then green revolution. Green revolution is something all of us are aware of. What do we mean by green revolution? So, after the Second World War, when the entire world was suffering through some or the other form of food crisis, there was an increased thought process which went into it, that how to make these areas self-sufficient in terms of food production, how to bring significant amount of food production in those areas. So what was done? A newer methodology was initially proposed, initially by William Gadd proposed this concept of green revolution to increase the food grain production substantially, to make the third world countries of the world self-sufficient in terms of food. We have talked about it yesterday also, that how we as a country, we were dependent on aid from United States for our wheat supply. So that was prevalent in other countries, Mexico as well, European nations as well, other Asian nations as well. So what that concept involved was that, look, rather than using the normal local variety of seeds, we will use another kind, that is the high yielding variety of seeds, where the productivity per seed will be very high. So we'll use a different kind of seed. Then, majority of the places the soil is not very fertile anymore. So what we will do is we will use fertilizers, pesticides, weedicides, herbicides, chemicals in general, to accelerate the growth, to augment the growth, to take care of the rodents, mice, rats, etc., to ensure that the food doesn't get damaged. Then, many areas don't have the availability of moisture. So, we provide irrigation. So, based upon these basic practices, it was thought that the food production can increase substantially. William Gadd proposed it earlier. Later on, you had Norman Borlaug, Professor Norman Borlaug, who actually implemented it in the region of Mexico, where the wheat supply significantly doubled in small span of time. Now, looking at the success of that, one of the greatest agricultural minds that we have in the modern day and age, that was Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. M.S. Swaminathan invited Norman Borlaug to India. He wanted to implement that in India. But you know how it works in our country, where you have a certain idea, you pitch it to the bureaucrats. We are not very prone to change. We like status quo. Any change, we resist it. So the bureaucrats, when they were told that, look, this is a kind of a method which can remove all the food scarcity that we have, which can be the final solution for us. So obviously the bureaucrats were not convinced by this. So what MS Swaminathan did, he planted or he implemented this methodology in his own backyard. And there he observed the sudden boom in terms of production. And that is when again he invited the bureaucrats over. And this is the anecdotal story which goes that the bureaucrats were so heavily impressed that they immediately went ahead with the implementation of this green revolution in the 60s around the region where these could be provided easily. That is in the periphery of the national capital. That is where green revolution started being implemented in the region of Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, because irrigation with the help of the canal system was being made available on priority in those areas immediately after independence. And these areas, within few years, the agricultural productivity boomed, and these areas became the rice and the grain bowls of our country. From a country which was dependent on others, we became a country which started becoming self-sufficient for food productivity. So that is the success of green revolution for us. But over a span of 40, 50 years, this green revolution has also showed some severe limitations. For example, the over dependence on fertilizers that has made those chemicals a part of our food chain ecosystem. Over irrigation has made the soil saline. Over application of fertilizers have degraded the soil condition. Overemphasis on the high yield variety seeds has ignored the domestic variety, the indigenous variety seeds, whereby the high yielding varieties, they are not so much suitable to the changing climate, but the local indigenous variety, they are much more resilient to the changing climate. So those are the various facets. So green revolution refers to multiple growth in crop production in the third world countries based on the use of modern input, technology, high yielding variety seeds, mechanization with the help of tractors, thrashers. That is the time since when India started producing tractors and agricultural machineries. And now we are amongst the largest producers of agricultural machineries across the world. It is again an outcome of the Green Revolution. So, it was termed by Professor William Gadd in 1958 at a seminar, Food Crisis in the Third World Countries. Now, the Mexican food crisis was the stimuli as Professor Norman Borlaug developed the high-yielding variety seeds by genetic modification and cross-fertilization of the good quality wheat. It was successful in Mexico, and the wheat production doubled in a span of 7 years, and self-sufficiency was achieved. In 1961, M.S. Swaminathan invited Norman Borlaug, who suggested similar revolution in Indian agriculture. So after that, we have not taken a look back. So here, the basis of success of green revolution: high yielding variety seeds, commercialization, that is grow only the kind of crop for profit making, sell it in the market, not for sustenance, use of chemical fertilizers, irrigation facilities, and mechanization. And for that, you need to provide electrification. So that is why the regions of the northwestern part of the country, they were electrified. The rural areas were electrified decades earlier as compared to the eastern part. Many portions in North Bengal, in Bihar, in eastern UP, even in Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, they have received electricity in the past decade and a half. So obviously, these areas won't be developed that much in terms of agricultural productivity as compared to the northwestern part, isn't it? Then land holdings, consolidation of land reforms was done, where rather than few of the people having very ultra large land size, others having very small land holding, there was a kind of a rationalization which was done. Then use of pesticides, insecticides, weedicides, rural credit, providing credit to the farmers. All these made India self-sufficient in terms of food production. But there were limitations also, which exposed itself over a span of multiple decades. And now we are witnessing the absolute worst in terms of the impact of green revolution. So, what is the limitation? Last line: pesticides, insecticides, and weedicides. That is basically, pesticide is to control the pest. Pest is what? The rodents, mice, etc. that you have. Insecticides to control the infestation of insects which can damage the crop. And then weedicides, which basically the wild plants which start growing in the cropland, they are controlled by the spraying of these weedicides. Okay. Microfinancing is easy availability of loans and finances for the farmers, because the farmers would require some amount of money to implement all this, isn't it? Where would they get that money from? That is where you had uh, the regional local banks, the local area banks, etc., which were put to use. Okay. Now the limitations. First is ignorance of local, indigenous variety of seeds. These are more resilient, more suitable for a region, and the local variety of seeds are more resilient to climate change. Means lesser crop losses. Indigenous here, local varieties. Okay. Then over stress on production of food crops. So that means lack of crop diversification. Then over application of fertilizers, leading to soil degradation, contamination of food chain, contamination, and also groundwater pollution. Groundwater pollution. Then you have over irrigation. turns the soil saline, then has brought about regional disparity. Yes, one of the other factors is it has benefited those rich farmers. The marginal and the small farmers, they were not benefited out to such an extent. And it has brought about a large amount of regional disparity, where the availability of infrastructure was a prerogative not of the farmers. For example, the farmers of North Bengal, the farmers of Bihar, the farmers of UP, they were not supposed to dig canals on their own in the 60s. It was a prerogative of the government. So, due to lack of infrastructure, the farmers in the eastern and the southern part of the country, they never got that opportunity to experience that boom. As a result of that, the rest of the country, for example, Maharashtra, for as late as the 21st century, Maharashtra suffered from significant amount of farm suicides because the infrastructure was not developed. Now, as a consequence of that, farmers from Bihar, farmers from Bundelkhand, farmers from Vidarbh, they have been forced to leave their land and work in the farms of those rich farmers in the region of the Green Revolution. Now, regional disparity is never good when it comes to the social peace and harmony and a uniform growth of the country. So, that is never advisable. So, that regional disparity needs to be filled in as fast as possible. That is where the government, since Dr. Manmohan Singh itself, the government has been mooting upon and planning upon the idea of BGREI, that is, bringing Green Revolution to Eastern India, where the learnings from Green Revolution in the West will be implemented in the Eastern India, but in an ecologically sensitive manner. Okay? Right. Now, then we are blessed with a substantial portion of the livestock resources as well and livestock population. You don't have to learn the livestock population out there, guys. This is just to give you an idea that the livestock population, if it is quite significant, that also provides you the opportunity to carry out mixed farming. What do we mean by mixed farming? Where you carry out crop cultivation and animal rearing. That will increase the farm income. That will provide a kind of a safe bet, a kind of an insurance for the farmers, that even if, let's suppose, the crops have failed due to unseasonal rainfall, I have the animals to rely upon. I can utilize the animals. I won't go empty bellied into the bed. I have something to eat, in terms of I will have some money, right? I can buy something, eat something. So that is where livestock resources in India, they are so humongous. The population is amongst the largest in the world, and that is where we need to make utilization of. That is why it is also included in the portion of the fundamental duties and also in the directive principles to improve the livestock health. And that will also, in a long run, end up benefiting the farmer. Now, here, what we talk about is the agro-climatic zones. We will talk about this and then we will end the session. We will talk about the rest of that is organic farming. We'll talk about it tomorrow. So, agro-climatic zones. Now, from north to south, from east to west, the topography of the country is very different. The kind of climate experience in the country is very, very different. It is very varied. So obviously, you cannot have the same farming methodology which works in Punjab to be working in Odisha. You cannot have the same farming methodology which works in Uttar Pradesh to be working in Tamil Nadu. You cannot have the same working methodology to be working and implemented in Maharashtra and also working in Northeast. So there has been a school of thought for a long time, and it was initiated by the Planning Commission itself, that why don't we divide the country in terms of specific agroclimatic zones, a separate agroclimatic zone which will represent a uniformity or in terms of topography, uniformity in terms of climatic conditions observed. So once you have that uniformity, then you can implement a particular project, you can implement a particular aspect in any of these areas. So with that idea, the division was done in terms of agro-climatic zones. So here you will observe the you don't need to learn these agroclimatic zones. You just need to have a broader idea. In GS, UPSC has not been asking this in the mains exam for some time now. In optional, it is still asking it. So here, just observe it. Agroclimatic zone number one represents the Western Himalayan region. All of them represent a kind of a similar hilly mountainous topography. Agroclimatic zone number two represents the northeastern or eastern Himalayas, again mountainous topography. Right. Zone number three, the lower Ganga plains, the Rad plains. Zone number four, the middle Ganga plains. So these all represent a uniformity. Observe that how zone number 11 represents the entirety of the eastern coastal plains. Zone number 12 represents the entirety of the western coastal plains. So a uniformity in terms of topography, a uniformity in terms of climatic conditions, so that we can have a distinguishable factor of agriculture, methodology of agriculture, which can be implemented in these areas. Okay, only then will we be able to observe a kind of a meaningful result where our food production would increase, self sufficiency would come in, and we would go for a kind of a more environment friendly method of cultivation and food production. Okay. Okay, so that is where we will end this particular portion. Okay, and tomorrow we will have a class from 6:30 in the morning, and there we will cover about the portion of some portions of economic and human, location of industries, the factors defining them, population settlement. We'll try to go through the portion of mapping tomorrow itself, if not possible tomorrow, depending upon how long you are able to sustain and face me in the class tomorrow. Upon that we will take a decision. If you are comfortable with continuing the class for some time longer, we will do the mapping tomorrow itself. Otherwise, we'll switch it over to the portion of next Saturday. Okay. And again, so the class will be there from 6:30 a.m. in the morning, and it will continue till you all and we all want it to continue. But minimum up till 10:30 we will continue, and then depending upon the vagaries of the concentration, we will carry it out. Okay, so I hope the session has been helpful to you. And basically, again, before I forget, a reminder that the feedback form has been generated to you. I think it is the feedback for both geography as well as economy, which has been handed out to you. Please do fill those feedback sheets, and whatever has been your experience, do let us know about it. Okay. And Muskan, mm, you teach geography very well. Thank you, my dear friend. Now I'm thinking to take geography as my optional. So again, I would say please go through the portion of the notification, get a look at the various different queries or the syllabus there, and then make a meaningful decision. But geography is a good optional to take. If here in the portion of physical geography you have enjoyed the session, geography will always be a good optional for you. Gulam, good to know. And Garvit, there was a concept you were addressing in the beginning which was hard to remember. A student had asked that it was related to iceberg. Could you be a bit more specific, Garvit? Is the 11th NCRT physical geography basically more important than the 12th human geography for GS? 12th human geography for GS is something that you can finish as a book almost in 3 to 4 days if you provide good concentration. Right, that is how easy it is to finish. It is the physical portion of geography where conceptual clarity is required. But I'm sure after, if you have been attentive in the class, that won't also take you more than a week. But do go through the portion of revision. Okay. Ashay, what is your post? My dear friend, post where? In the organization that I'm working or the examination that I cleared? Which post are you referring to? Please send a mail for these kind of queries rather than having these queries in the session. Okay. So, thanks, Shubham. Sardani, what are the tips you want to give us during our preparation? Tomorrow, I'll give you the method to revise as well. Tomorrow, I will declutter this exam as much as possible tomorrow as well. So that whatever inhibitions, fear that you have, so we will talk about that in detail tomorrow. Okay. Somo, I hope that climatology doesn't haunt you that much. Climatology is one of those areas which is very rewarding, my dear friend, but it is equally punishing if your concepts are not clear. So please don't let climatology become one of the enemies out there. It is your friend. And that is where, again, I would say, switch on the first slide, annotations of the PPT. Take a look at those. Try to think about it. What is it that you have not understood? We have tried to write everything in the class, right? I tried to write it down, and that is why I have taken it extraordinarily slow during the time of climatology, to the irritation of quite a few of you, quite apparently. But I hope that that will provide you with a kind of a leeway. That is why I went slow. It doesn't matter when the if I need to take an extra session, I'm ready to put in that extra time for you. I'm ready to take in 5 extra more sessions if required. But if the concepts are clear, my dear friend, then you will never require to read the subject again. So I don't want you to get into that trap again and again. So start with that. Okay. And Pavitra, we'll talk about it tomorrow. If the mapping session is completed tomorrow itself we'll talk about it, or the extra session that we'll take, then we will talk about it. Approx how much percentage of geography optional is logical, how much amount is facts and memorizing? Roughly around, if you consider, roughly around 65 to 75% is absolutely logical. You have around 10% which is required to be learned in a way. And then many portions of Indian geography, people don't read it. They only read it for the portion of current affairs. So it is current affairs driven as well. Okay. Pavitra, will talk about it tomorrow, don't worry about it. I took admission just this week, and so I haven't completed geography. So Anup, do join another session of geography if possible. Okay. And Yashi, do take a look at the recordings of tablet. Yes, Sakshi. Chavan, which is the issue that you are facing, my dear friend? Can tea and coffee be grown in region of creep if water supply is improved? Yes, it can be. And impact of green revolution on women, it has brought about some amount of economic prosperity, but there has also been research paper about it, that how in certain areas it has provided patriarchal setup as well, but don't go into that. In general, the economic prosperity has come in. Female labor force participation due to intensive cultivation has increased. So those are the benefits. Okay. I'm very confused in choosing which magazine to read for current affairs. Current affairs, whichever, if you are comfortable with our magazine that we give, read that. Any coaching institute, whichever you are very comfortable with. So our magazine is also very comprehensive enough. If you are talking about the other than that, then the in the webinars we cover Yojana and Kurukshetra in detail. Down to Earth is one of those magazines that you can adhere to. Okay. If possible, should I attend the next class of geography as a revision? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Why not? While around 65% of Indian population are contributing towards agriculture, then why India is still second in production? Because our efficiency is very less, Aniket. Our efficiency of production is not very high. Basu, along with current affairs, yes. Whatever is given as a content, more than sufficient, along with current affairs. Nagentran, down to earth. I know name of states producing particular crops. No, not required. Sarita, if the time permits, I do take the sessions of environment and essay as well, depending upon whether the schedule permits. Gayatri, what is your doubt? Uh, yes, Chavan, please send a mail to me. Are we required to learn minor millets? No, we don't need to learn minor millets. Okay. Okay. So that is where we'll end the session here today, guys. See you again tomorrow morning. Till that point of time, do take care of yourself. Goodbye. Thank you.